Yeah. Or, yeah. Right. Yeah, that's exciting.
Oh, no, I went to Centennial Eagle.
North?
Wow.
We're on, and she's not muted.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, are you ready?
Sorry, yes. Katie's on, yes.
Am I allowed to use the gavel to start the meeting? It is August 28th, 2025. It's 11:36 a.m. You're in the Oregon Veterinary Medical Examining Board's public session. The public session is scheduled to start at 11:30 today and will continue until the end of business. And then executive session, which is closed to the public, will follow, continuing until the end of business. And then the board will expect to come out of executive session and into public session for all purposes of voting on cases discussed during executive session and all other applicable board business. I'll start with roll call. If I can have you just say here after I call your name, Executive Director Peter Burns.
Here.
Investigator Janine Holland.
Here.
Investigator Bertina Graho.
Here.
Licensing Administrator Brooke Walker.
Here.
Senior Assistant Attorney General Joanna Tucker Davis.
Here.
Thank you. Dr. Reagan Borzek.
Here.
Dr. Allison Lamb is here. Dr. Brett Hamilton.
Here.
Dr. Katie Wallace.
Here.
Public member Mr. Brian Wadika.
Here.
And absent today, we have CVT Natalie Mayer Williamson, public member Karen Pate, and Dr. Max Rinaldi. We'll move on to item 3, the OVMEB's board chaired comments, which is my comments. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. I know that Executive Director Peter Burns shared our appreciation for everybody that could join us. Summertime is hard to get everybody together, and we appreciate your commitment to the board and everybody making time, carving it out of your busy schedules. As we know, veterinarians are very busy. So we appreciate all of our members and veterinarians for carving it out of their schedule, public members for being here because they're so vital to our operations, as well as the staff who do a great job putting these board meetings on for us. It's a lot of logistics, as I got to see this morning behind the scenes. So thank you, everybody, for joining us today and helping support the board. We'll move on to item 4, which is our public comments. I believe we have one item for public comment. Did you want me to go around the room first, Pete, and do public introductions of everybody real quick?
Yeah, we can do that for
Okay.
roll call, yeah.
So we'll jump back to roll call real quick because we do have some public members in the room. If I call your name, if you can just unmute yourself and just tell us maybe, who you are and why you're here today, not more than just a, couple seconds of introduction. If you have not submitted public comment to us and you have a public comment, let us know. But typically we request that you submit those early, and we just have one public comment today that we're aware of. So I'll start with, I'm just going to run the list of how people were entered into the room. So Henry Villarreal, can you unmute yourself and just introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Henry Villarreal, also representing my wife, Julie. I'm present because we have an open investigation going on.
Thank you very much for joining us. Taryn, and I apologize, I'm going to not say people's names correctly. Taryn Pestalozzi?
Hi, yes, I'm Dr. Taryn Pestalozzi. I'm a veterinary nutrition assistant and veterinary specialist here to discuss telemedicine.
Thank you. I'm sorry about not pronouncing your name correctly.
No worries.
Thanks. Glenn with OVMEB.
Yes, I'm Glenn Kolb, Director with the Oregon Veterinary Medical Association, and I'm going to be commenting on Senate Bill 976. I believe that's on the agenda. Thanks.
Thank you. Jamie Cheshire?
Hi, I'm Jamie Cheshire, Associate Veterinarian at Mountainside Veterinary Hospital, and here as a member of the PVMA Board of Directors.
Great, thank you so much. I believe that's, and Dr. Ryan Schultz?
Ryan Schultz, the Oregon State veterinarian.
Great, I think that's everybody that's attending virtually. We do have somebody attending in person today. I don't know if you want to introduce yourself in the back there, if we can hear you on the mic. Thank you. All right, we'll jump down then to the public comments. I believe we have one to put up on the screen, Brooke. Board members, this is in your packet under public comment, and should contain one document.
So this was put on your iPads just recently, and this is from our public participant, Dr. Pestalozzi. So if folks haven't had a chance to look at this, we'll give you a minute to read through this, and then I believe Dr. Pestalozzi has some additional comments. Also, during public comments, I think this would be the time to hear from Mr. Kolb with OVMA. He's not on the agenda, but I think we could enter what he has to share through public comments.
Okay, that sounds great. We'll start with this and then we'll move on to him after this. Dr. Pestalozzi, would you like to unmute yourself and say anything in regards to your public comments? We do need to limit it to about 3 to 5 minutes, but you're more than welcome to speak in regard to what you've provided with us today. We will not likely do any deliberation today or make any final decisions, but it will be an opportunity that board members can ask you a clarifying question if need be.
Great, thank you very much for the opportunity to address you today. I tried to keep my written document fairly brief. I understood you would probably have a limited time to review it, but I thought it would be helpful for me to provide a little bit of background about what I actually do as a nutritionist. Nutrition is the newest specialty incorporated into the College of Internal Veterinary Medicine, but previously was a separate college, the American College of Veterinary Nutrition. And we're a pretty small group. So there's less than 100 of us, I think, in the US and Canada, and in private practice, that number is smaller. I'm the only nutritionist in Oregon, started practicing here in December of 24. We have one other nutritionist in the Pacific Northwest in Seattle, Tacoma. And so my client base is pretty similar to internal medicine. I see a lot of patients with multiple chronic conditions. Often there are challenges getting them to eat prescription therapeutic diets appropriate for them, or there might not be diets that are appropriate for all of their conditions. So a lot of my patients end up getting customized homemade diet formulations, or I work with their guardians to help identify the best commercial option we can that they will hopefully eat. Because I am the only one in Oregon, it is sometimes difficult for clients to access me with the valid in-person VCPR. That's how I've been seeing clients since I've started here in Oregon. While I practiced in California at UC Davis during my residency and fellowship, it was very common for us to do telephone appointments with clients, and that is something that is very commonly done by other private practice and academic nutritionists. And so hopefully I'm looking for potentially an exception to the Oregon administrative rule that limits telemedicine to patients that have an invalid VCPR. I've tried to outline in my document some information about this, some precedent, a recent Model Practice Act update from the AVMA, and essentially just want to reiterate that honestly, doing a physical exam has somewhat limited value for my purposes. Certainly I do one, and sometimes it helps delineate things like body condition score, but it's rare that I am making new diagnoses based off of exam and can really perform my job without doing so in the majority of cases. I'm very welcome to answer questions or provide additional information.
Thank you very much for your presentation. I'll go around the room to the board members. Dr. Borzek, any questions for Dr. Pestalozzi today?
I don't have any.
Thank you. Dr. Hamilton?
No questions.
Thank you. Dr. Wallace?
No questions at this time.
Thank you. Public member Brian Wadika?
No, it's fine.
Thank you. I do have one clarifying question, if you don't mind answering it for me. When you receive requests for a consultation, are they mostly from individuals reaching out for their own personal pets, or are they usually referrals from veterinarians in other practices?
It's a great question. It's a combination of both. So certainly we have clients who identify the need or the desire for a nutrition consultation on their own. Most nutritionists are either having their own websites or they're listed on the ACVM Vet Specialty website. But also I'm getting referrals both internally from the other clinicians in my hospital and externally. And I honestly frequently am getting requests from colleagues I know from previous jobs in other states and other locales that are asking me if I can do remote consults for their patients.
Thank you so much for that clarification of your services, and thank you for bringing the attention to what you're experiencing, and so we could be more aware of services across the state. And thank you for your comment today.
Yes, thank you for your consideration.
All right, we'll jump to Glenn with Oregon Veterinary Medical Association to talk about the bill that he was brought up in his introduction. Sorry, I don't remember the number, Glenn.
Yeah, thanks, Dr. Lamb. Yeah, Senate Bill 976, which I've discussed with you previously, and Pete invited me to maybe a brief comment, kind of an update. So thank you, Pete. I really do appreciate that. So Senate Bill 976, which we tracked throughout the legislative session, we were opposed to it. It did pass the legislature at the very end of the session. What was removed initially from the bill was equine dentistry part, an allowance for lay people to perform those services. That was amended out of the bill. But what remained was allowance for lay people to preg check cattle and also perform other pregnancy services, which really is undefined, is not defined in the bill. Department of Agriculture would write rules around this. There was another requirement, because it was amended into the bill, that requires lay individuals who perform the service to report livestock diseases to the Department of Agriculture, which we had a concern about. So the bill was passed by the legislature, but OVMA, we gathered and considered and did submit a letter, formal letter to Governor Kotek asking her to consider a veto of the bill, which after careful consideration, she did. She listened to our concerns from other veterinarians. Presumably, she also heard from Senator Nash, the sponsor of the bill, and also she heard from our state veterinarian, Dr. Scholes. So she did veto the bill. And we had a very short celebration because for us, there's one more hurdle, and that's to hopefully ensure that the legislature does not override the governor's veto, which is a possibility. So the legislature is meeting starting tomorrow to talk about a transportation bill. The House meets and then the Senate, I believe, follows up after that. It could go through the weekend into the first part of next week, but somewhere in that process, while they're deliberating about a transportation bill, there's a process for perhaps discussion and consideration of an override of this bill. So we're kind of waiting to see, but I wanted to provide you that update.
Thank you so much.
We will know at the latest by the first part of next week whether the veto stands or is overridden.
Thank you. I'll go quickly around the room. Dr. Borzek, any questions for Glenn?
No questions at this time.
Dr. Hamilton?
No questions.
Thank you. Dr. Wallace?
No, I'm good. Thank you, Glenn.
Thank you. Mr. Brian Wadika?
Done. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Glenn, for the update. We always appreciate having information brought to the board for us to be more knowledgeable about what's going on around us.
So thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you, Glenn.
Thank you. So
Any other public?
no other public comment from my side, and but we did have a couple of people enter the room, I believe. Was it just one, Brooke, that entered? Would the individual who just entered the room like to unmute themselves and introduce themselves just really briefly, their name and why they're joining today? We're through our public comment at this point in time, but if they did have public comment, they could ask to be on the schedule for next meeting. Apologize, I don't have a name that came up. It just came up as
That's okay.
DVM.
It says they left.
Okay.
Oh,
Do we want to check to see if anybody that is attending, public participants, have any short public comment?
sure. First I'll just ask, is there any other public members in the room virtually that I've missed by some chance? Because virtually I can't see your name on the screen. Are there any additional public members today joining us virtually that would like to make a public comment, since our public comments were shorter today? All right, so that will end our public comments. We'll move on to 5, which is our consent agenda. We have today's agenda, which board members have in their packet, and then we have June 26, 27, 2025 public board meeting summary. Were there any corrections or additions to the public meeting agendas for today or from June 26, 27, 2025 from board members? All right, in absence of any comment, I'll move to approve the agenda today and approve the board meeting summary from June of 2025. Do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Wiedeke seconds. All those in favor, Dr. Borzik?
Aye.
Dr. Lamb, aye. Dr. Hamilton?
Aye.
Dr. Wallace?
Aye.
Mr. Wiedeke?
Aye.
Motion passes to approve the agenda and the meeting minutes from last meeting. We'll now move on to item 6, which is an update from the state veterinarian, Dr. Ryan Schultz. If you'd like to unmute yourself and share information with us today.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me. Or I guess it's still good morning for a couple more minutes. So just a couple quick updates on some things we've presented in the past, but kind of have some updates and then some new things going on. So I think I mentioned on the last meeting that we had received some funding from the legislature through the Department of Emergency Management for building out a better disaster stockpile of supplies and equipment for disaster response pertaining to animals. So we have completed that purchase. We are in the final stages of wrapping up all of those kits. But by the time we are done, we will have either a shelter trailer or a shelter kit available for every county in the state. So those kits the trailers will have a capacity of 40 crates of companion animals and 20 stalls of livestock. The kits are slightly smaller. They're palletized. It's 20 companion animals, 20 stalls of livestock. The idea is for larger operations, if needed, we can pull multiple of those together from neighboring counties and be able to get supplies deployed rapidly to those. So we are just wrapping those up, and then we'll hopefully begin the process of signing some MOUs with counties and getting those out and staged in the counties where they can do the most good the quickest. We also had a couple of larger assets we were able to purchase for trailers that have panels to set up 20 larger kennels for dogs or small livestock, and then another trailer with 20 small sheep and goat pens as well. So working on building that stockpile a bit, getting those distributed throughout the state as well. So on a disease standpoint, we have not had any influenza cases in Oregon since March, which is fairly expected. We don't typically see them during the spring and summer. We are starting to get into our high risk period, though. Typically about the 1st of October is when we start seeing the teals flying through. They tend to be the first birds really migrating in mass. So we do anticipate seeing cases this fall again. We know the virus is still present in the flyways. And there was just a positive commercial turkey flock announced, I think yesterday or the day before, in South Dakota. So we know that the virus is still out there and present in our flyways. So we do anticipate more cases this year. We continue to still not have had any cases in dairy cattle, and I apologize, I should have pulled the total number, but we have now been running our dairy surveillance program, doing weekly testing on about 90% of the dairies, counting for about 98% of the dairy cows in the state since November, and that will continue until we've been 30 days without any cases in neighboring states, and then we'll go to a longer time period than weekly, probably every 3 weeks at that point, collecting samples. So, but continue. I think we're somewhere around 5,000 total bulk tank samples we've tested during that time with no detections and no evidence of infection outside of that either. So. The other big thing taking up a lot of our time these days is making preparations for New World screwworm. We know it's likely just a matter of time before it gets here. Our risk on the livestock front is fairly low with the Mexican imports stopped again, and we really don't tend to bring in a lot of Mexican cattle into Oregon. Really, the 2 times we see Mexican cattle are Corriente roping steers. We've got, I think, three stock contractors here in the state that do bring some in. But we've been working directly with those producers and have some plans in place for that. And then a few of our feedlots historically have brought in a lot of Mexican steers for feeding purposes. The main feedlot that accounts for the vast majority of those, though, discontinued that practice as soon as the first case was announced in Mexico, and does not have any intentions of restarting working with Mexican cattle anytime soon. And so I think our risk is probably lower on that front. Where we're really identifying probably the highest risk is in companion animals. We import a lot of dogs, particularly out of Mexico in the rescue trade. And many of those animals have very little, if any, valid veterinary inspections. They tend to have paperwork. It tends to be in Spanish. And now that I have a Spanish-speaking employee, we're finding many of those tend to not be quite what they're purported to be. And so I think that's probably our biggest risk. And then humans is another big risk, as we saw this last week. The other one that we know, it's hard to really put our finger on, but we know there is a lot of horses that are illegally crossed over the border for the purpose of generally illicit racing. And because that whole industry is underground, we really just don't know the extent of it. We know that we are a common destination for a lot of those horses. So we believe horses are probably another risk. What we're doing about it, so similar to what we did with avian influenza, we are going to be putting out some sampling kits for veterinarians just to have available in case they are out in the field or in their clinic and suspect a case. And then we're hoping possibly as soon as tomorrow to be putting out quite a bit of guidance for veterinarians, for pet owners, and for livestock producers on recognizing signs, what to do if you have a suspected case. And then we are also working on putting some finishing touches on submission guidelines for veterinarians, how to report to us, how to collect those samples and get them sent out. And then also some clinical recommendations for companion animals and livestock, because there are no FDA approved medications anymore to treat New World screwworm, or even a lot of the secondary complications associated with them. A lot of those will be extra label, and there's some limitations there. So we're working on putting together some guidance there so that we'll try and keep those updated with everything as they change, what products can be used. And then even some of the external parasiticides that are EPA registered, there are a few that are still carry a screwworm label, but there's a lot of complications in that. So we're having our pesticide program put together some guidance, because even if it's EPA licensed, it may not actually be licensed in Oregon. And so we're trying to work on some of those and make sure that we have those resources available. Hopefully getting those pushed out starting tomorrow. We was just reviewing our website right before I jumped on the call today. So Glenn, do you want me to, or sorry, not Glenn, Pete, do you want me to jump into the other topic now or wait for item 7?
Thanks, Dr. Schultz. So we do have some additional documentation related to the screwworm topic, and then some other forms that were just loaded onto board members' iPads today. But we have that item listed in discussion and action items a little bit later on. because that will involve a little bit more discussion in terms of some challenges, I believe, that Department of Agriculture
Mhm.
experiences. And so we'll have a more detailed discussion in that setting so that board members can interact a little bit more freely. Does that sound okay?
Yep, I will hold the rest of that conversation for then.
And you're the first item on that discussion action items agenda, so we'll hopefully won't hold you up too long here, okay?
Perfect. Yep. And I
Appreciate
think
your
other
time.
than that, I think that's the end of my update.
That sounds great. Any board members, questions for Dr. Ryan Schultz? Will we have him on this topic? We'll hear from him again here shortly after the executive director report, but Dr. Borzek,
No.
Dr. Hamilton,
No questions.
thank you. Dr. Wallace,
No, I'm good.
thank you. Mr. Wadika?
No questions.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Schultz, for the update. We appreciate having that information so that we can share it with our licensees in a timely manner. And we'll move on to item 6 or 7, executive director report with Director Burns.
Thank you, Dr. Lamb. As usual, I have the executive director's report here in your documents. I'd like to take some time to go through. There's a couple new additions, and just to make sure we highlight a few things. We start off with our annual budget. This wraps up the biennium 24-25. We're in good position financially. Our cash balance and our regular months of reserve are all reflected here. Still checking in with our shared financial services advisors regularly, and they're making sure that we're on firm footing. We meet monthly, and I just met with our support team yesterday, and things are looking good. For the November board meeting, we'll have all the numbers and budget presentation for the first part of the new fiscal year. One part, I just want to continue to highlight under budget related here, the third paragraph under the budget section, is that we're still working to recoup some of those old unpaid civil penalties. A number of these have been sent to the Department of Revenue, and that's starting to get some progress. Either folks are reaching out to me and saying, I got a letter from the Department of Revenue and I want to get this sorted out. So this project's starting to be productive, and hopefully we'll get these things recouped or otherwise accounted for. So that project continues. And that's really it to highlight the budget right now. One thing I'll get into a little bit later here is the fee increase. That will, of course, impact our revenue for this coming fiscal year. But are there any other general budgetary questions in this section?
Any board members with questions for Director Burns regarding the budget? I'll let you unmute yourselves if you feel you have a comment, concern.
If anyone ever has any questions, there's additional budget detailed documents on your iPads. You can look through those. You can reach out to me individually and ask specific questions. Okay. But if nothing now, I'll move on. We only have one board meeting left in looking at board meeting calendar dates. We only have one board meeting left for 2025, and that's in November 6th and 7th. We do want to start to talk about 2026 dates, and I don't think we can really get into getting our calendars out and really hashing that out right now with our limited time constraints. But I do have a couple things I'd like to clarify, and I think I have a good plan to try to get hopefully some things inked in the books, certainly by our final November meeting. So Dr. Borzek had a great suggestion about planning for 2026, and I appreciate that. We've been trying to go with establishing something every other month. This year, we specifically ran into some challenges in the summertime, and we tried to schedule in 2 different meetings through the summer. Summertime is just a challenge for folks, staff, board members, everybody. So Dr. Borzek suggested that, and prior to that, we'd kind of tried to work more around the December, January holidays. So we'd made some adjustments there for 2025. What I'd like to propose is that we meet starting mid to late January after the holidays have kind of settled down, and then meet every other month. So that would include January, March, May, July, September, and November. So we'd really be looking to just, we'd still avoid a lot of the challenges in the holiday time in December and January. And we'd be looking to give folks a little bit more freedom in the summer months. So with that, I've got a survey I can send out to folks where you can send me your availability in those months. But I wanted to first ask if those months, if that plan to kind of target those months works for folks, or is a good idea. And then I also would like to discuss, we always meet on Thursday and Friday. We've discussed this in the past, and I'd like to know if we'd like to continue in that, or if we'd like to expand it to the work week to see if that gives us some more viable dates that work for more people. So first of all, are those good months to target for folks? Starting January, March, May, July, September, and November?
Would you like me to go around the room? Would that be?
Maybe just if anybody disagrees, holler at me. I'll send some follow-up with a survey to try to get this, so you've got something tangible to look at and start to plug in your dates. Okay, well, we'll focus on those dates. And then what do folks think about the Thursday, Friday model? I know that works for a lot of people, or it works better for a lot of people. It's still a challenge. But are folks interested, or would you like to consider opening up the full week? What are your thoughts on that? And maybe for that one, we can go around the room and see what folks say.
Okay, Dr. Borzak?
It doesn't make a huge difference for me in terms of days of the week. I can be flexible with what works for most others on the board. I do think there's maybe some value in the board members who have to travel, having a weekend, maybe, I don't know, to get back and forth, but I'll let them speak to that.
Dr. Hamilton?
Well, I guess so when I started the board, it was a big deal that we had our meetings on Friday and Saturday. And the reason for that is, and what's happening is, it makes it much more difficult and much more expensive for veterinarians that are actually out in practice to be on the board. There are less veterinarians. I've talked to some about being on the board, and they're the ones you want on the board. They're the ones that are actually out doing it in a large part of the state of Oregon, and they simply can't afford to travel or even just take the days off during the week. So, I mean, I think it depends on who you want on the board, but I'm a little saddened that we're having less and less people that are actually out practicing on the board. And a small part of that is our schedule.
Thank you. Dr. Wallace?
Yeah, Brett makes a very valid point. It's extremely stressful for me to take Thursday and Fridays off, because then I'm off for 4 days in a row, and a lot of times then I make up for it on Saturdays by working that day. And so it'd be great if it was just a Friday, Saturday. It's hard to have that many days in a row out of the clinic. And that's part of the reason I participate virtually most of the time, because you just can't even add the travel on top of everything else.
Mr. Wadika?
I don't have a strong tie to Thursday or Friday. So
Thank you. I know my time on the board is limited, but I do share the concern that Dr. Hamilton brought up, because I have seen Dr. Hamilton and I have been on the board the same amount of time, and I have seen that trend of it starting with Fridays and Saturdays, where it seemed like we had more participation from veterinarians in practice. And it was nice. And I think that that is a value add to the board. I worry that for the same concerns that Dr. Hamilton brought up and Dr. Wallace seconded, that we lose really good people on the board. Not that we don't have great people on the board right now, but people who are out in practice that have that perspective when we limit some of the schedule. So for what it's worth, I just share that concern.
We've heard from all board members.
Yes, we've heard from everybody.
Okay, and I'll check in with those on the same questions with those board members that are not here, but I do appreciate the input. You know, my next topic here is talking about, you know, some vacancies we're going to have on the board, and it is hard to find folks to participate, and I know that's a challenge. So there are limits in what we can do in that model, but you know, it's something I can revisit with Department of Administrative Services and see what flexibility we might be able to have there. I want to really make this as seamless for participants as we can, because we've got to have those board members. You guys are the driving force behind our mission here. So I appreciate that input. On the calendar, I'll get some information and I'll get this survey out to you, and we'll try to find some dates that will at least be the most workable for you in 2026. Thanks for that input, everyone. My next topic here is our board officer update. And I just want to take some time to recognize that our current board chair, Dr. Lamb, will be taking on an exciting new opportunity outside of the state of Oregon. And she'll be vacating her board seat a few months earlier than expected. And this will be her final meeting with us. Today we'll be holding board officer elections for the chair seat. And I asked folks to reach out to me for nominations on that, but we'll talk about that when we get to it. But on behalf of the OVMEB staff, I want to extend a heartfelt congratulations to Dr. Lamb. It's an exciting new opportunity, and she'll continue leading the way in animal welfare. And I'll leave it up to her to share with you more about what she's doing, maybe one-on-one. We're deeply grateful for her leadership, her vision, and unwavering dedication to our agency, Oregon licensees, the public, and most importantly, the animals across our state. Her extensive knowledge, experience, and professionalism set a high standard for our work and have greatly enhanced the agency's professionalism, consistency, and effectiveness. She's made our board meetings a lot more smooth, and we're getting our work done in a timely manner. The work we've done to clear our case backlog has just been amazing over the last couple of years. Dr. Lamb has provided steady leadership through significant agency transitions, including multiple personnel changes, that backlog of investigative cases I just mentioned. And she also led a number of key initiatives, such as recent revisions to VCPR and how we review our cases. She's strengthened partnerships with both local and national associations who are represented here today. And we want to thank Dr. Lamb for exceptional contributions and wish her continued success in this next chapter of her career. We're going to miss you.
Thank you. I will miss everybody too. You guys are amazing. It's been fun working with the staff for sure. I've enjoyed getting to know everybody over the last few years, and board members. It's been great getting to work with you as well as our partners that are in the room and virtually. I just appreciate you all. And if you have any questions about things that I've been involved in, I'm only a phone call away. So
we're going to call you.
And
I wanted to present you with a little something from the agency to show our appreciation, recognition of your service to the agency in the state of Oregon.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Now I got to gather myself to continue with the agenda. Thank you. But we do have lunch here. Are we doing a working lunch? Is that kind of a good interlude, or would you like to finish your section?
I've got a few more things
Okay,
to cover
I'll
in
let you
depth. No.
finish.
So let's maybe take if you guys
Just
want
a 5 to
you guys
grab
wanna
our
take a
stuff.
quick. How do you feel? 12:15.
I,
Yeah.
I know there's some
Okay.
people who've been working longer than others this morning, so.
Well, thanks. Let's just take a quick break. We're gonna grab, we have some lunch here. We're gonna grab, and then we'll reconvene and pick up here in just a minute, okay? Okay,
Okay, thank you. Just like 5
maybe
minutes.
just mute us and we'll get some lunches passed out.
Are we off mute now? It's 12:21 on August 28th, 2025, and we are in the public session of the Oregon Veterinary Medical Examining Board. We're doing a working lunch right now, so please forgive us for the extra little bit of noise in the background.
Yeah.
But this is what worked to make quorum for this meeting, and we appreciate all the board members and staff working through lunch to get the important topics done today. So I'll turn it back over to item 7, which is the executive director report, with Director Burns to finish up his discussion.
Super. Thank you, Dr. Lamb. And thanks again, board members, for your flexibility, public participants. Yeah, with the abbreviated schedule today, we just wanted to kind of be as productive as we can in our time. So the work and lunch was a good way to go today. So next item on the list is something that's been on here for a while, and it's board member recruitment. So we'll have Dr. Lamb's seat to fill, which is a DVM designated seat. But we also will have our one public member seat that will be opened up in October when Karen Pate steps off. So we've talked about that a couple times. We recognized her. She's not with us today. We recognized her when we last met together, I think in April. Public members are a difficult spot to fill. I've reached out to other boards. I've reached out to the governor's office. I've reached out far and wide. So we have not had any viable candidates yet. But if anybody's interested, please share the message far and wide. Ask them to reach out to me. I'll be glad to talk them through the process. It's vital. It's an important contribution to state governance. And the details are here in the report. So I left that in there. But we're continuing to look for those two seats. Next item is licensing fees. So we've been talking about this for a long time. It shouldn't come as a surprise. I've been making sure I'm talking to everybody about this. Licensing fees were passed in our last budget, our future budget at the last legislative session. And here's a breakdown of the fee increases. We started messaging on this just recently, leading up to the end of the year renewal period, so folks aren't surprised. We're going to make the shift over October 1st. It will incorporate, we are navigating how it will impact CET renewals. Those are set to start renewals in October. And so we're communicating with folks if they can get renewed prior to, they'll be on the old fee schedule. After October 1st, we'll be on the new fee schedule. Any questions on that? Emails will be coming out. It's on our website. I'll be fielding questions. If anyone wants to give a call, ask questions, feel free to reach out.
I have a question.
Sure.
How's that up to?
Depends on how, like the first 30 days are a specific amount. 60 days late is another amount. We're up to 225. Is that right, Brooke? Yeah, I thought rather than spell them all out in there just to kind of present it, I would just say it could be up to 225. Any other questions? Okay. And thank you all throughout that project. Thank you for being involved. And we talked about that detailed together and made those decisions together and walked through that whole process together. So thank board members for that. Moving on to our operations and our agency program areas. We've just got our regular updates on licensing. One thing we've added into our licensing numbers is, did we add in the new applications? Oh yeah, licenses added in May and June. So we're trying to provide some numbers in terms of, the volume of licenses we're handling each month or each quarter. So those are steady. Those have been coming in steady. Brooke works through those quickly. We still have a very short turnaround for licenses, complete licenses to completion within usually around 3 business days. or less, sometimes often in the same day. Once it's complete, we wrap those up in the same day, but we try to get them done within 3. And then communicate with folks if something's happened that's going to drag those out longer. Moving on to investigations. Our numbers are here for August. We still have a lot of cases coming in. As I've been reporting, we don't have a lot of old cases, which is good. We only have 6 cases left that are more than a year old. A lot of these have some really kind of extenuating circumstances in terms of rings or things like that. But we really don't have any old cases as we used to. So thanks to the investigators for working so diligently on those, board members for helping review those in executive session, clear those. We're making good progress on those. Any questions on licensing, investigations? I didn't ask. Everybody good? Okay, inspections. We currently have an open inspector position. That inspector position is vacant since June 25. Since then, current staff, myself included, we've been conducting inspections. We've cross-trained on that. We've reviewed our process. We did some training inspections, and then we went out and we've just been doing some regular inspections. And it's been a great experience. Everybody, all staff members have said they enjoy seeing that side of it. Really reviewing the process, understanding inspections a little bit more in depth. We're in the recruitment stage for that new inspector position, and we're very close. Governor's office has an expectation of 50 days for an open recruitment, and we're right at that. We're hoping to hit that mark, which is with state and recruitment, it can be tough to get that filled in that time frame, but we're right on mark to get that done, and we hope to have that inspector position and at least an offer made by next week. We're in the final stages of that recruitment. Once that position's filled, we're going to be doing onboarding and phased training to get the person knowledgeable and prepared to continue facility inspections throughout the state. Other than that, on inspections, I've provided just some general information that's been kind of standard in here. We are reviewing the 2025 pharmacy inspections currently. Requests were sent out. We received a lot of those back, and we're really just kind of trying to get a handle on those numbers. What we've got a lot of contacts for facilities that need to be updated. So that's one thing we're trying to identify and clean up. And then in-person facility inspection numbers are currently being reviewed, and we'll get you an update on that hopefully by the next board meeting. But that's it for inspections right now, and that's it for my executive director's report, unless anyone has any questions.
Any board members with questions for Director Burns regarding his report today? I just want to take an opportunity to thank staff. I think in veterinary medicine, we all know when there's a vacancy in any area that it's a lot of extra work on the people that are present, and then onboarding and doing interviews adds to that, and then training new people adds to it. And you guys have done an amazing job coming together in the past as a unit, and I have nothing but great respect for you all moving forward in the future to come together again, and once you have another person onboarded.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, Dr. Lamb.
Thank you. All right, we'll jump down to discussion and action items. This is 8. The first one under there is Dr. Ryan Schultz of the Department of Ag. Thank you for your patience, Dr. Schultz, and staying on with us to discuss another topic.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is a topic we've talked about a couple times, and it kind of came back up here recently as we've been preparing for and kind of developing some of our protocols for New World screwworm. But it really centers around the exemption that is in statute for the Department of Agriculture from being licensed, but it doesn't exempt us if we are licensed. And so just wanted to kind of revisit this because with this new risk particularly, it poses some additional risks to the veterinarians that work for the Department of Agriculture. So as a reminder, the statutes that for the licensing board provide an exemption from the requirement to be licensed for employees of the Oregon Department of Agriculture. We are not required to be licensed. However, there are a number of scenarios and reasons why we do all carry state licenses. For situations that we end up encountering through our normal duties. A lot of those are obligations that have been given to the department since a lot of those statutes were originally passed. Things like assisting in law enforcement actions. We provided extensive assistance to law enforcement action down in Coos County here a couple months ago at a very large facility where we are going to be expected to testify. That is the first question every time I've ever testified in court is, are you licensed? Right. We need to be licensed for that. We need to be licensed to be able to obtain prescription medications, which a lot of the times the things that we're using are prescription pharmaceuticals. In disaster responses, we need to carry a license. There's a number of reasons we need to. The risk that has posed, and we got a opinion that was kind of a collaborative effort from our AAG and the board's AAG, I believe last year, was that while we are exempt, if we are licensed, it then potentially creates a risk scenario where we are expected to follow all of the requirements of the Practice Act. The biggest one is the requirement to establish and maintain a VCPR for any treatments. That's something that, for a number of reasons, we generally don't do. One of those reasons is just the potential conflict of interest that it creates, but also just practically, we are not always in a position to be able to do that. And some of the obligations that kind of come along with a VCPR. So in most cases, when we're operating, many of the diseases that we deal with either are fatal diseases that end up in euthanasia, so we're not providing treatments. It's not really a risk there, or they are diseases that are usually being treated by a primary veterinarian that maintains the VCPR, and we're providing consultation and assistance through that process. New World Screwworm is going to be kind of a new frontier for all of us because it is one where we have to provide, especially early on, we are going to be the ones doing the assessments. It is a foreign animal disease. If you take the definition of a disease a little abstractly, it is a foreign animal disease. It's one that has to be investigated by a certified foreign animal disease diagnostician. It carries international implications if we have a case. There's a lot of reasons we need to be involved there. But it's also one that we don't euthanize for, we treat. And most of those treatments at this point are not even labeled treatments. They're extra label, they're off label, which can only, there are emergency authorizations that allow us through FDA to be able to do those extra label. There's some pieces we're working through with FDA there. But there is even within USDA standard operating procedures, which I believe is included and on the screen there is a requirement that when we are there doing the initial assessment, we are looking at an animal that has needs beyond just us pulling a couple larvae out of that wound, right? It is a wound that is infested. It is a wound that is deeply infested. It is a wound that is likely infected with secondary infections. We need to be providing systemic anthelmintic treatment and antiparasiticides. We likely need to provide pain management because digging deep into that wound to pull larvae out that have screwed themselves into that wound is going to be deeply painful. Trying to debride that wound can be very painful. There are things we need to be able to do that typically would need to be done under a VCPR. And so we're kind of just bringing this topic up again for some discussion around it. On that risk that being licensed potentially extends to my veterinarians. Just for just comparison purposes, I can send a brand inspector out to do this treatment and am perfectly covered by that exemption. Someone who has no medical background, has no veterinary training, I can send out to administer these treatments under my direction, but I potentially put my veterinarians at risk by doing this without a VCPR. So just kind of that dichotomy is where our concern lies, that if we chose not to be licensed, we are covered. If someone who is not eligible for a license is doing it, they're covered as long as they're an employee of the department. But if we're a licensed veterinarian, we're potentially at risk. So the two materials that I provided, the one that's in the packet and the additional one that I provided this morning to Pete, which is still very much a draft. I think I've changed it half a dozen times already in the 2 hours since I sent that in. But those are just kind of for reference. The first one is the USDA, their standard operating procedures. This kind of shows what we're being told we have to do. That second one is our localization of that, our standing orders that we've been working on so that we are doing it. We don't typically carry medications. We're having to go out and purchase antibiotics and purchase, all these things because we don't typically carry them. So we're trying to create just some standing orders because everything's going to be off label or extra label that we're using consistently. And so that's what that document is, just to provide us some coverage. The third one is just actually part of the standing orders, but is a separate page. It's just our treatment record that we would be leaving with owners to be able to work with their veterinarians and basically referring the animal back to their veterinarian. After we have cleared the larvae from the animal, re-inspected it at 24 hours, that case would be turned back over to their herd veterinarian to continue the management of the case. Or if in many cases that veterinarian may be present already and we may be working alongside them. And in that case, that's great. But this is for those situations where that's not the case and we can get out there a lot quicker than their herd veterinarian can. So.
Thank you, Dr. Schultz. Director Burns, did you have additional information that you wanted to add or?
I don't. I just want to make sure board members receive those documents. They were added just this morning, but there are some additional documents that Dr. Schultz provided. And then just to reiterate, we've talked about this issue before. It's kind of a catch-22 or gray area, ambiguous area for Dr. Schultz and his team, Department of Ag. So, I think it's worth consideration for the board to discuss and see what they think about this.
Is that a discussion that you wanted to have right now in public, or is there any additional information that we need to gather from executive for this before we have discussion?
I'll double check with Joanna on that.
This is Joanna. I don't have legal advice for you on this. This is a policy call for the board. What you would want to consider is, do you want to enact a rule that exempts ODA employees from whatever rules you think they should be exempt from, and then still subject to whatever rules you think they should be subject to, like humane treatment, for example. So that's just a board decision.
Thank you. Dr. Wallace, I see your hand up.
I just had a question. How do other states handle this? Is there do we have a rule from other states that show how they handle it, or?
I'm not familiar with that offhand. It's something I could look into. How about your counterparts in other states, Dr. Schultz? Are you familiar?
I'm not. Honestly, so one of the things we struggle with is that in Oregon, we are charged with a lot more than a lot of other states are, right? We have a direct charge for disaster response. We are responsible for a lot of the exotic animal oversight, so we end up being involved in those humane cases. There's a few things we're involved in that maybe other states aren't, and so I think a lot of them are just now starting to have these discussions because of the New World screwworm issue. I will also say that a lot of other states, their licensing board falls under the state veterinarian, so I think that maybe they don't deal with this quite as much because
Right.
that's been. They may deal with other conflicts there, but this is not one that I think a lot of other states necessarily deal with. And honestly, it's one that's been present for us, since the early 50s when all of our statutes were last updated. It just hasn't really come to light until recently because a lot of what we're doing is starting to shift with the shifts that we're seeing in new disease emergence and what's the expectations being placed on us. And to be clear too, the only thing we are asking for consideration is within the scope of our duties with the department. If I or one of my veterinarians are doing stuff outside of that scope, either because we're going rogue or we're practicing on the weekends or whatever, that has no bearing on this. We are only seeking consideration for within the scope of our official duties as an agent in the Department of Agriculture.
Dr. Schultz, this is Dr. Lamb. Can I just ask a clarifying question
Mhm.
around that? Do you have a set group of veterinarians that are employed by ODA, or are you talking about also extending that exemption to people that may be brought on for emergency disaster situations, or where would that line be?
Yeah, so I think if I remember correctly, the language in the statute is employees of the Department of Agriculture. So we have a couple different mechanisms. Yes, there is a set team. So myself, and then there's 4 district veterinarians that work under me that are permanent full-time employees of the department. We do, within our statutes, we have the ability to do a couple different things. We can hire veterinarians on a temporary basis. We also can utilize deputy state veterinarians, which is just a term that exists within our statutes, but essentially allows us to deputize any licensed veterinarian to assist us in the conduct of our business, of our duty, of what we need. That requirement, though, requires that they be a licensed veterinarian. And I know that there was, and on the opinion we got, it did cover that. I don't remember the exact opinion on that, but essentially, because they're licensed, they would kind of fall outside of this typically, that we're utilizing that to basically hire a veterinarian to do the work that needs done with their clients. It's not typically being done, to cover a region and be going farm to farm. Typically, if we're needing that kind of assistance, we are hiring them as an actual temporary direct hire employee, which would then kind of cover them under the same as the full-time district veterinarians would be.
Thank you. And where I'm hearing the most concern from you, and just correct me if I'm wrong, is that it's mostly around the BCPR for diagnosing, testing, and treatment for animals, or is there other categories that you can see from your angle that you're still concerned about?
Yeah, I think that's the main one. I will say that some of the other ones, there's potential. I don't foresee that it would really be an issue, but even like the humane treatment one, we absolutely take that obligation to heart, that but there are times where even within the AVMA, humane euthanasia guidelines, there are exceptions and carve-outs specifically for the kind of work we do, where we may be in a situation where we have to choose a less humane option because of a lot of other pieces that are there. And so it's a little bit of an uncomfortable situation, having that potential pathway for someone that doesn't like the optics of that to come after us with. But I don't think that's something we're necessarily seeking exemption from, just kind of knowledge and continued dialogue with, so that the board understands some of those differences, I think, is more of the direction on that one.
I'm going to go around the rest of the room. Dr. Borzek?
Yeah, I had the same question as Dr. Katie. I feel like we can't be the only board that's thinking about doing this or looking at doing this or have done this. So I'd be curious what some other states have done, and if we can get more information about how they've approached the issue. That would be helpful, I think, to have a framework of where to start looking at the problem.
Dr. Hamilton?
So I have 2 questions. One, are there district veterinarians that are not Oregon licensees, Dr. Schultz?
Currently, no, that has not always been the case. But because of the current scope of our work and what we're being asked to do, they are all Oregon licensees. But that being said, we as an agency pay for those licenses. We are specifically so I only have, I think, one veterinarian that does a little bit of outside practice on weekends that is, kind of that we've deconflicted with her official duties. Everyone else is licensed solely because of their responsibilities within the agency.
Okay, so that makes sense. So I guess I'm having trouble seeing the position where they're in trouble, because where they're not where they're not complying with doing a VCPR. Can you give me a good example of that?
Absolutely. I think that this New World Screwworm brought that up, is really where a lot of this is coming, right? So there's two pieces of it. One is the kind of the position of the agency in reviewing things, and we haven't really gotten a solid answer to contrary, but is that a VCPR potentially obligates us to act in the best interest of the owner, the client, and the patient, which is really not what we're called to do. We're called to act in the best interest of the state as the whole, often to the detriment of that individual animal. And so that's one potential. That's kind of an obscure one, I think, that honestly, I think it's an example. I'm not sure that's one that I have a significant concern about. But the bigger issue is, like, given this, the situation with New World Screwworm, let's throw a scenario out there. If either yourself or Dr. Wallace, out in the middle of Eastern Oregon, calls us up and says, "Hey, client of mine just called up, said they've got, XYZ symptoms. We think it's New World Screwworm. I can't get out there for 3 more days. It's in the middle of nowhere. We're going to send a vet. It's probably going to be 4, 6, 8 hours for me to get that vet there, just drive time. And then we are working against really tight deadlines to collect those samples, get them packaged properly, get them to FedEx, to be shipped to Ames, Iowa, to be delivered the next morning by 10 a.m. to be reviewed by the parasitologist. So we hopefully have results the next day, because this may be the first case of a foreign animal disease. We also, though, have an obligation to be providing some treatment to those animals when we're doing that, right? We've got to dig around those wounds. We need to give them Banamine. Those wounds are infected. We need to be giving them oxytetracycline or some sort of systemic antibiotic. I need to be giving them ivermectin, which is an extra label used to give them ivermectin for treatment of New World Screwworm grubs. We need to do some debridement in that wound. And there may be 10 or 15 animals with similar wounds lined up in that chute that we've got to get through. We don't have the capacity to do a full individualized exam on each animal. We don't have the history on the animal. We don't have all those things to necessarily establish that. We are in a position where we need to be able to operate off of a standing order based on that scenario, provide that treatment to try and do the best we can to protect the animal, while also balancing that with getting those samples to FedEx to get the results, getting that parasite killed in the animal, but also getting it identified and all those things. So we've got these dueling things that we just often don't have the ability to do that. We don't carry thermometers in our trucks. We don't carry stethoscopes in our trucks, right? All of those things that you would normally do as a veterinarian out in the field, we don't do. And so it's a potential conflict that comes up there.
So I guess I get the concern, but I mean, in large animal medicine, lots of stuff we do lots of things that every animal does not get an individualized physical exam. And I think my recollection is that our rules and statutes from previous boards have kind of given us a little sway for the board to interpret that. And the other thing I think is, like, I don't think, as a veterinarian, where maybe it's going to show up, I think Dr. Katie feels the same way. If we thought we had New World Screwworm, like, that's one of those things you don't know. We have time that day, that night, right then. Like, I think most of the veterinarians that deal with large animal medicine realize how catastrophic this could be, and I think are willing to do. I just feel like everybody should be licensed. If they're going to act like the vet in Oregon, they should be licensed. And I think our rules give the board sway to allow you to do your job without problems from us, if that makes sense. So,
Yeah, just a couple clarifications there, though. State and federal law says that you can't, as a private vet, can't be the first one on that farm unless you are there unknowingly and find it. You have to report it to us, and we have to be the one to collect those samples on the first case. So that is, I mean, if you join us, that's great, and we always love that. But that's one clarification. I think I agree with you that the current board policies, the current makeup of the board, I'll be honest, I don't have any worry that, if someone filed a complaint because they didn't like the fact that I told them that they had that we had to euthanize all of their chickens. I have no current concerns about how that would go. The problem, though, is we do have a legal opinion from the AAGs on both sides that said that, yes, there is a risk there. And 10 years from now, is the makeup of the board going to be the same, that we can rely on the interpretation of that policy? And that's really where the concern lies, I think, is that there is that. And I personally believe there's clear intent shown by the legislature that the actions of the Department of Agriculture were supposed to be outside of the board because we are not practicing private medicine. We were exempted from the requirement to be licensed. The problem is there are some scenarios where we now are needing to be licensed, and so it creates that conflict.
Dr. Borzak, I see your hand up. I'm going to jump to Mr. Wadika since he hasn't spoken yet, and then I'll jump back to you.
No, I don't have a lot to add other than just I'd like to see what language exists in other states and if we could mirror that somewhere.
Dr. Borzak?
Essentially the same as what, Dr. Hamilton and Mr. Wadika said.
hey, Dr. Schultz, I have one more follow-up question. So if I get a call from a client and they describe anything that looks like New World screwworm, does that mean I have to call you before I even go look at it?
Ideally, yes. That's not to say that we're going to tell you no, don't go. But it is supposed to be done under our oversight. That's actually the case with all reportable diseases, that at the point where you have first suspicion, you are supposed to report that. We very rarely are going to tell you no, don't go. We're going to go instead. In most cases, we're going to just verify with you that, okay, here's the samples we really need to get in this media. Do you have that? Do we need to meet you halfway to get it to you? Those kinds of things. We have some leeway to be able to operate under our direction if it's too remote, those kinds of things. But yeah, we really are supposed to be having that conversation before you go out if you suspect it might be.
Any other board members with questions? Oh, go ahead, Dr. Hamilton.
I'm sorry, I just have so if it's reportable, I mean, one of the things I've wondered since, and I'll go to this one, is strangles, okay? So strangles is now reportable, correct?
Yep.
So if I was at a bunch of brandings this spring, and one of the thoughts that occurred to me is, if a horse gets strangles at a branding, or what's the process then? Is the state going to call all the people at that branding? I mean, there might be 50 or 60 horses there. Are they going to call all the owners of that were at that branding and notify them, or how does that work? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I do. And what I'll tell you is it depends on the disease, right? It depends to some extent on the situation too. So with strangles, we typically don't. Strangles is such a hard one to be able to trace. It's not, we do know that was occurring this year. We had several cases that we believe probably did trace back to brandings. Typically, though, the response on strangles specifically is an individual horse quarantine for 30 days or negative guttural pouch washes. We don't require guttural pouch, but we'll do that. Really what we're the most interested though is making sure that you have what you need to be able to get that sample. A lot of times we will cover the cost of the sample. We'll get it shipped so that the lab gets it the next day. They'll stat it without charging you the extra stat fee, and then we're getting the results quickly. And then if you're standing in the middle of a big dressage show where all hell is going to break loose when that positive result comes back, we're working to make sure that we're helping to coordinate that piece of it. When it's a branding out in Eastern Oregon where everyone kind of knows the risk, typically those people are talking. We're generally not going to be calling all of those people that were there unless there's a reason we need to be. That's really a consultation with you.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep. If it's an EHV neurologic one though, that's going to be handled different. If you tell me you think you have foot and mouth disease in some cattle, it's going to be handled very, very different, right? So there's kind of different levels of what that response on a reportable disease looks like.
Right. Well, my concern was if you did start like contacting everybody at the branding, pretty soon people were going to be hiding it from the veterinarians, right?
Yep, absolutely.
And so sometimes, anyway, I totally get it. Thank you for your answer.
Yep, it's very rare for us to contact exposures. Typically, we're going to work with you and make that plan, unless it's a big one.
Any other board members have any questions or comments? So it sounds like from here, maybe we need to look a little bit at our rules, because when I read the definition of the veterinary client-patient relationship, there are some exceptions that it sounds like maybe ODA might be more in line with, but I obviously don't want to be saying that we're making a decision off that based on this information, but it sounds like maybe having staff look at the rules around VCPR compared to the definition, get the other jurisdictions information, and then deciding if we need some legal advice on the definition with those rules and what other jurisdictions are doing might be where we need to figure that out. I do have one question, Dr. Schultz. I know that this is sort of critical and coming at us pretty quick. And I know, I don't think anybody in this room or the board questions the good work that ODA does. And we want, to be supportive, but also in our legal, parameters of what we're allowed to do. What do you foresee the timeline for you all having these restrictions become pretty concerning for your group, or are you guys at a kind of a critical level right now?
I don't think we're definitely not at a critical level. I think where we're at right now is a level of uncomfort. We've over the last couple of years, we have enjoyed a really good working relationship with the board. Like I said earlier, even if someone filed a complaint about something we did, I really have no doubt in how that would go and in our working relationship with you all. And the fact that the current board kind of seems to understand what we're doing. And I don't anticipate there would be an issue there. So I don't think it's a critical thing. I don't think that that my current concern is going to stop us from anything that we're planning on doing in this response. But I think that every time we have a new one of these situations that comes up, it does increase that feeling of discomfort just because it's another potential exposure that we all have. Because we're trying to do the right thing, we're trying to be licensed, we're trying to, exactly Dr. Hamilton's point, we are pretending to be veterinarians, and many days it feels like a lot more pretending than acting. But we are veterinarians, and therefore I do believe we should be licensed. But there are certain things there where that are potentially in conflict. So I think it's a discomfort right now. It's not a critical thing that's stopping us.
Thank you. I appreciate your candidness with that and hope that this process can bring some clarity to both sides. So, both your organization and our organization can feel comfortable with the decision in the future.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Dr. Schultz. All right. Moving on to discussion and action items 8.2, the board officer voting. Director Burns, will you be leading this?
If it's okay with you,
Yeah.
could we jump to CVT just to cover, we have Dr. DeBess here to help
Absolutely.
answer any questions. And so just in respect to his time, if we could jump to that item first.
Sure, we can jump to action item or discussion and action item 8.3, CVT work group update with Director Burns and Emilio DeBess, Dr. Emilio DeBess.
So we'll bring up the document. The CVT work group met starting in June into July, number of meetings, very productive, a terrific group. They attended a number of board meetings, and they presented this final document as their recommendations, which includes rule change. There's a little summary at the top there that was presented by board chair Natalie Mayer Williamson and the co-chair Dr. Emilio DeBess. The font represents rule change. And then down at the bottom is another section that's related to emergency response. So folks, hopefully you've had a chance, board members, hopefully you've had a chance to look at this. And if you have any questions, Dr. DeBess is available.
Any board members with questions for Dr. DeBess? And thank you, Dr. DeBess, for
For a microphone, if you want to come up, if you have any.
So there's actually two of us. Christina participated as well.
Absolutely, yes. Even better, yes, of course.
Yeah, we gotta give credit. to us.
Thank you so much, yes.
Well, let me give credit where credit is due.
Yes.
Dr. Emilio DeBess and Christina Keefe joining us today for the CVT work group update. Thank you so much for being a part of that committee. And it's just one more way that the board functions is through their committees and their work groups. So thank you for joining it from your perspective. I know there were a lot of other people on that work group who joined in, and as we all know, they can take a lot of time and a lot of commitment from your already busy schedules. So I do appreciate you guys both being on that committee, but in the work group, but also being here today to share your opinions and your thoughts about how that discussion went. Is there anything specific that you'd like to highlight from the document?
You know, I'm gonna say just overall, CVTs want to expand on their ability to do more in practice. And I think at least the two veterinarians that were participating in that discussion, I think we need to consider their view of the profession and more than what they used to be and be more participatory. I think you'll see that highlighted in the new emergency, what is that called?
At the,
Title of that?
it's at the very bottom.
Emergency animal care.
Yeah, emergency animal care, in which they actually really want to, under the supervision of a veterinarian, do a little bit more, perhaps a lot more. That would actually not only help the veterinarian, but really protect the welfare of that animal, be able to act on a situation that the veterinarian may not be quite available at that time. And I think, you know, we looked at California rules, we looked at Washington rules. I think this aligns with what's going on in other states. This is nothing new, different anywhere else in the US. But I think the key component here, which I think we've said before multiple times, is that this is not a must. This is something that the veterinarian will decide as to whether he or she will be able to, or they will be able to allow this certified veterinary technician to act under their supervision and do all these activities. Do you have any?
No, I agree. I mean, it really is up to the veterinarian that is overseeing them to determine if the trust and the skills and the knowledge are there. So again, it's not something that they have to do mandatory, but yeah, it just helps with the elevation and trust of our credentialed technicians and really make the most of access to care and It's a win-win all around.
Yeah, so I think everybody's pretty much on the same page, at least the group, about what we're presenting to you. Obviously, you know, you look at it, you may have questions, you can send it back as needed, but the idea behind it is this is a great starting point, a great draft of what it could be, what it could really mean, enhancing the activities that a CBT can do in the veterinary profession, the veterinary clinic, really for the welfare of that animal, period. That's the end.
And certainly there was a lot of time on the front end spent on just clarifying definitions. And also there was, like, anytime you revisit a document, as you all know, bylaws and rules and regulations, there's inconsistencies because of changes over the years. So we went through and spent a lot of time on that. So it took a little time to get to this point, just getting some of that cleaned up. So.
Thank you. We'll go around the room. Dr. Borzik.
I'd like to hear from everybody else, and then I will talk.
Sounds good. Dr. Hamilton.
I'm looking at it, and so what I see at the top is it says changes are in red. Is that correct? Right?
Yes.
But there's changes that I read that are not in red. Is that, it says the workers, these are below in red. And for instance, perform extractions is not in red, and that would be new, correct?
Extractions has been in the rules.
Dr. DeBest, your audio is really kind of challenging to hear. Can you say that again?
Well, I just said that it's within the rules, so that was not added to the rules, that it's been in the rules since I've been.
I'm sorry?
So the dental extractions has been something that was permissible for CBTs to do for many years, and it's been in rules for a period of time. There's been lots of discussions over defining simple versus complex or complicated, but besides that, that's not a new change, right? You guys.
No, it does exist under 875-03000040. And if you scroll down, sorry, I made it really big and now I can't see. Perform extractions under the immediate supervision of a licensed veterinarian.
And can you hear us now, Dr. Hamilton?
And that's in the existing rules, currently listed online.
I think in my experience, what has been limiting about this particular portion of the Practice Act is that it's the supervision level. So it's immediate supervision, which means that the DVM has to be standing right there. And if the DVM has to be standing right there anyways, then the DVM might as well just extract the teeth. So this was something that came up a little bit in the CBT work group. I think it's a good point of discussion for maybe us to have about what that could look like. But that, in my experience, that is, you can read that as, you could interpret that as not, as CBTs don't extract teeth in the state of Oregon because of the way that the supervision is written out. So, and I don't know, I saw Dr. Katie nodding. So if that's how others have experienced that interpretation as well.
Absolutely. It totally limits my ability to use the skills that a CBT has been taught because I have to stand there or be right there. Like the level of supervision in our Practice Act is the most limiting part of a CBT being able to use their skills.
So going back to the red line version here, and the suggestions that are being made, are there other, so all duties must be performed under the supervision of a licensed veterinarian, and the supervising vet shall determine the responsibility, and only the supervising veterinarian of a CVT shall make all decisions relating to the diagnosis, treatment, management, and future. So in this document, are we adding anything that a CVT can do at a new level, or am I missing something on? Except the VCP, the K, which I'll get to in a second.
K is.
Okay. Okay.
I think there's still desire for a different work group and another stage of an actual scope of practice discussion so that we can better lay out all of the different things. Maybe not quite as complex as Washington that has over 35 identified things, only credentialed technicians, but integrating it into the CVT work group didn't seem like it was the best use of everybody's.
Okay.
Otherwise, we would have never gotten to this point.
To this point, yeah.
Yeah.
This is very much of a draft.
Yeah.
Please understand that, it's not, that you may have questions, and if you wish, you can send it back to us. We can review those as well. This is what we collected, not only from the CVT group, but also from other states as well.
Yeah, I really like the language, the competency language in there that I really like. But I want to get around the room. Dr. Wallace.
Yeah, I didn't have much time to review this, but like I stated, to me, the biggest challenge in employing CVTs is that the level of supervision that is required. I'm standing there, I'm there anyway. It doesn't help me. So, and I think they have schooling and education that should allow them to be able to do some things independently, like give an injection of a controlled drug.
Mr. Wadisa?
I don't have any questions.
My only comment is about K and the establishment of a VCPR and the legality of a CVT being able to actually make a VCPR. I have no problem talking about the vaccines and the preventative care, and I wonder if there's another place, because I think in statute, I think there's an area that says the board can dictate who can give vaccines, and like we can create a list of who would be allowed to do vaccines, and that may not require the VCPR. And I'm wondering if there's another loophole of ability to do that, but I'm not as legally savvy as our Joanna Tucker Davis that might be able to give us more advice on that.
So this is Joanna. So the when and when not, putting aside federal law just for a moment, right? Putting aside any federal requirements, for you all in Oregon state rules, when or when you don't want a VCPR to be in effect is a policy call for you. And then in terms of the statutes allow you to dictate when non-veterinarians can assist veterinarians by rule. So you have a lot of policy decision-making and discretion on that as well.
So I guess with that information, I would be more apt to be interested to not have the VCPR acknowledged in that, but creating rule that gives permission for vaccines to be given outside of the scope of a VCPR, and interested to how CVTs would deal with that and whether that would still be permissible, because a CVT would be acting under the DVM, or maybe not, because we're giving them permission somewhere else in the policy.
Yeah, and a little bit information behind the VCPR vaccines, and it's really for animals that lack care, where a veterinarian may not be able to get to in many parts of Oregon. We all think about the Tri-County areas being accessible to everyone. Oregon is not the Tri-County area. So we're talking about areas in the state where there's no veterinarians, right? And perhaps CVT may be able to assist with basic preventive care.
Yeah. since
Can we
you're in
get
the
that?
room.
Can we, I can't hear what Emilio's saying at all. I don't know if anyone else can, but I can hear everyone else clear, but I can't
Is it-
hear him.
We're working on the microphone that's
You put
near
it right
Emilio.
there.
Let me have him test it real quick. Emilio, can you just,
hear me
is that better?
better?
Can you hear Dr. DeBess at all?
Hear me?
His audio
It's
goes in and
garbly.
yeah, it's garbled.
Let's sit over here. Let's come over. This microphone's working. We'll just squeeze in.
Yeah.
No, I'll stop right there. Okay. Thank you. So what did I say?
You were talking about, the acknowledgement of K and why we were talking about CVTs administering preventative or prophylactic vaccines in more remote areas and why that's important.
Yeah, so this came about because of access to veterinary care in some areas of Oregon. And I think we all tend to think about the Oregon as a tri-county area where veterinary services are readily available. And I think the group was very aware of the lack of services that some of these animals, even as simple as vaccines or flea care, flea prevention, could get in outside of the Portland area, and even east of the I-5 corridor, things are start getting less and less likely to have a veterinarian on site. So CVTs would actually, under the supervision of a veterinarian or under the authorization of a veterinarian, to be able to provide prophylactic vaccines and medication. So that's the idea behind as to why K was written, or why came about based on that need outside of the larger metropolitan areas.
And Dr. Hamilton, my question referring back was, I have a little bit of concern with to establish the VCPR, since a CVT can't necessarily establish the VCPR without the vet being there. But I wondered if, and Joanna, correct me if I'm wrong, if I'm saying too much here or not, that if there's a policy call that could be made that allows CVTs to do this kind of outside the VCPR to begin with, so that vaccines could be given. And where I was going to go next, because Dr. Emilio DeBess is now sitting next to me and you can hear him, is we're only talking about vaccines that are non-rabies vaccines, and he's nodding his head right now. So because I know rabies kind of falls in a different category in other rules for the state of Oregon.
Yeah, that is correct. So the rules are under the Oregon Health Authority in terms of who can provide a rabies vaccine. Certainly, if there's agreement in terms of this particular K piece of the rule, which under K, we may be able to change that within our section to align ourselves to this particular aspect of the rule.
Dr. Borzik, your hand is up.
Yeah, so I have two questions. One question and one thought. One would be maybe I just need some clarification on what you were just saying, Dr. DeBess. So we would change things to allow for CVTs to be able to give rabies vaccines in the state of Oregon, because I worry that if we don't, then aren't we kind of running into the same thing that we're running into already with the extraction situation, where they can get all of their core vaccines except rabies, and then they need a veterinarian to get rabies, so they're going to have to see a veterinarian anyways. Like, I can sort of see,
Yeah.
I mean, there's benefits there, but
Right now, the CVTs can give a rabies vaccine, but they have to be under the supervision of a veterinarian. So we would change the rules to allow for this particular change.
So you're talking about all vaccines could be given not under the direct supervision,
Correct.
including rabies.
Correct.
Is that how I'm answering
Correct.
it, or
Yes.
understanding?
Correct. We'll be changing the rules so all vaccines could actually be given.
okay, that makes more sense to me. Okay. And then the other thought, Dr. Lamb, with regard to what you were describing, and I guess probably also relating to K if we don't change it, is just thinking about the communities outside of the target community, right? So obviously here we're targeting communities that are high need and low service, but these rules would be interpreted for the entirety of the state. So what do the implications look like for clinics that are in the Portland metro area? And how would the board make sure that we're taking all of our members into account?
So I think the first few words kind of define what this is about. It's a veterinarian may authorize. So the veterinarian, if they do not authorize this, is not going to happen, number one. Two, I think in my mind, separating the state in the rules is going to be a little bit of a mess. I think we just need to be, just create a rule, and the veterinarian may use that rule as they see it fit. And I was going to say something in addition to that. I think we've been approached by the tribes, the American Indian tribes, about accessing vaccines and medications for the control of parasites or internal and external parasites, and having the ability to do that and creating some sort of a rule that I think this would actually help minimize that concern and have the ability to access vaccines and other medication, flea or tick medication or internal parasite medication in those areas that do not have a veterinarian on site.
Communities, it is in downtown Portland. It's downtown Eugene. It's those that don't have access to care for financial reasons or housing, whatever the case might be. So geographically, or defining it in any other way, just any circumstance that would benefit from this.
I hear the whole discussion and feel very passionate because I work in an area of doing administrative, preventative, prophylactic vaccines all the time. It's the where I'm still getting caught in my head is to establish a VCPR. And what I'm wondering is that if we have the ability to say policy can say when we do or when we don't allow vaccines, if it's not even needed in there, a veterinarian may authorize a registered veterinary technician to administer these basically outside of VCPR because the VCPR doesn't exist. The worry I have is by saying a veterinarian now authorized the registered vet technician to establish a VCPR, then the CVT, in my mind, the way I'm reading it language-wise and the way my brain works is that now the CVT has established the VCPR for the veterinarian, which I don't think can happen without conflict. And I see Joanna shaking her head. So I feel like I'm right in saying that. And then that there isn't actually a VCPR that is established by the veterinarian. And so the VCPR doesn't actually exist, but it doesn't mean that the vaccines couldn't be done in this situation. It just wouldn't establish a VCPR because what the VCPR is implying then is later we can prescribe other drugs or we can prescribe other things. So I think it would just be taking that out.
It does say only, but yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
But I wonder if carving out like a veterinarian that authorized these things to happen contradicts the requirement for VCPR. So that's why it's in there like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think specific language to make it all, that's Joanna.
And I think the question is too, is if we are going to talk about rabies vaccines, in the past, I've always felt like they were under a VCPR because you wanted the vet to know that the animal was healthy when they got the rabies. I know that we had a question come up when we had limited authorization use of the rabbit hemorrhagic disease vaccine because it was limited use, they really wanted a veterinarian to look at that animal before giving it because it could have affected the ability for the vaccine to then become licensed. So I'm also wondering about just using language in here that says a veterinarian may authorize a registered veterinary technician to administer licensed or, already FDA approved, or something that kind of conditionally puts the core vaccines on there. Because I hear what you're saying. There's populations of people that need access to this that will help our community so much. But then it could get into the other side where, oh, well, I got permission to do this and let the CBT do it without considering those really one-off situations. But I agree. I think this is really nice to give the extension to the CBTs. Did the group review the scope of practice from AABSB in their work group? Was that brought up? I didn't know if it was available at the time.
Honestly, I mean, it is much larger conversation.
Yeah.
It was tabled. Full scope of practice discussion needs to happen in this.
Yeah.
Yeah, and again, these are draft rules, right? So you will be, it is up to you to decide what you removed or what, you add and how you change the language to fit what is it that you're interested in and what the scope should be. This is just a draft. So keep that in mind because it's not final. I think there's been a lot of discussion. We have spent a lot of time just talking about very specific aspects of it, and it would be great to hear from you and then get it back to actually work on it a little bit.
Yeah.
And I will add that title protection probably needs to happen first before scope of practice is fleshed out, and that's something that is being moved forward. So hopefully by next year.
Okay. Dr. Hamilton, I see your hand up.
So, I'm concerned with the contradictions in this. So, and what's on our screen, it says administer rabies vaccine. But then it doesn't allow that person below it says they can't sign the rabies vaccination sheet. And it seems like if you're able to administer it, you should be able to sign it. And I guess my big thing on this is, the first letter of VCPR is veterinarian, and I can't get around that. And maybe Dr. Wallace has a different view of this, but so with the exception of rabies, all these other vaccines, I can go and get it at 3 feed stores within 10 miles of my house. So it's not like you can get them mailed to you. I don't honestly see this. I don't know what the underserved community really is. Most of the people that live in remote areas move there for a reason, and they know what changes that brings in life. But I don't treat animals that people go, gosh, we just didn't have access to vaccine. Now they may have administered it themselves from stuff they went and bought at DMB, which is 2 minutes from my office, and that's fine. I just think the VCPR is if we start doing this, it doesn't mean anything. It really doesn't. That would be my take on it.
I was just going to say about the rabies vaccine. CVTs in the past were not or have not been able to sign the certificate because we wanted a veterinarian to sign it. We need to, if we're going to change the rules about rabies vaccine, we need to look at what's allowed nationwide and if a CVT is actually able to sign and be accepted in other states as well, in case that animal were to go from one place to another, which is why you're seeing that contradiction. The actual rules which belong to OHA are the rules that will need to be changed based on what you all decide as a potential rule change for vaccines. And maybe the rabies vaccine should be a separate rule altogether to be handled that way.
Okay. I like where it's starting and where we're going with this. A couple suggestions that I'm going to punt to Pete is that AABSB did a really nice, the scope of practice for CBTs, and there might be some information in there that could be of value or helpful. So I don't know if we have that presentation from Beth Bennett on recording that would be available to you all. And then it may be worth pumping the brakes until after September with meeting with this group, because I have a feeling at the September meeting, there might be some more information coming out from AABSB, and I hate for you all to like work on a wheel that might have already spun. And that wheel might actually provide some additional information that you all are bringing up that might help kind of guide some of the conversation with that group that's been provided nationally, if it's available. So if you don't mind following up on that, Pete,
Sure.
to see what we can and can't share from AABSB, what comes out of their groups might be helpful for the discussion moving forward.
Sure. And so it sounds like the board's taking providing some feedback back to the work group. We'll do a little bit more digging on some of those research topics and AABSB's, what they've got. Maybe reconvene the work group after September when we know more information, and potentially have work group meeting September, October, back to the board in November.
I want to make sure that there's no other board members that I missed anything that they had thoughts about. I see Dr. Hamilton, your hand is up, but I'm not sure if it went back down after your last comment or if you have a new comment.
No comment.
Okay. Dr. Borzik, anything else?
No, I support sending some suggestions back to the work group. And yeah, if you have some insight into something that might be coming out in September from AABSB, that I think it'd be the timeline Pete outlined sounds good.
Great. Dr. Wallace?
Yep, I agree.
Great. And I know Mr. Wadika just stepped out for a second, I think, just to get a drink. And yeah, so if that sounds good, thank you for all your hard work on this group. And it sounds like we're going to put you back to work.
Back to work.
Never end.
Thank you.
Thank you both.
Yeah.
Great.
Do you want to take?
Sure. It sounds like this is a good natural stopping point to have a little break. So it is 1:34 p.m. on August 28th, 2025. We'll take a quick break till 1:45 and come back to the room at 1:45. Does that sound good?
Okay.
All right.
Oh. Yeah. Great. Okay, I think we're ready to jump back in.
All right. Are we back unmuted, Brooke? All right, it is.
Recording?
Are we recording? It is August 28th, 2025. It is 1:50 p.m. This is the public session of the Oregon Veterinary Medical Examining Board. We are on discussion and action items 8 and 2. We're going to jump back to board voting. We just completed 3 of time constraints. We're going to jump back now to 2. Director Burns.
Okay, thank you. Yes, this, as I mentioned earlier, we need to vote for board officer position. I'd asked for any nominations, and Joanna, we discussed this a little bit. I did receive a nomination for Dr. Rinaldi, who's not here. He verbally accepted the nomination to me. Joanna and I discussed this briefly, but go ahead.
So he doesn't need to be here for you to vote for him. Obviously, he could later say, no, thank you, right? But I'm not aware of any law that says he would actually have to be here. The one thing to know is just like any other vote you do, everything, it's not like secret ballots like political elections. Everything is public, just like all your other votes.
Okay, and we've also not received any other nominations. That doesn't mean people can't make nominations now, correct?
Yes.
Okay, and then we also didn't receive any nominations for the co-chair position, but it's not essential that we vote for the co-chair position today. We do need to decide on a board chair, and then perhaps in November we could have another election and determine nominate and vote for a co-chair. That all sound good, Joanna?
Yeah, so the statutes anticipate that you have a chair. The statutes don't anticipate you have a co-chair. I think historically this board has liked having a co-chair because the idea is that person may step up and then the next year or year after that be the chair. Yeah.
And they're able to step in when a chair is not available, which has happened here too. So
I'd also like to just open it up to if anyone would also like to self-nominate themselves for chair or think about next month or in November, the next meeting, co-chair or vice chair. Sometimes people don't want to put other people on the spot because they don't know each other's board member, responsibilities in their personal lives, but you may be thinking about it and want to do it yourself. And it should not be frowned upon to self-nominate, in my opinion. And if Joanna tells me you can't do that, then self-nominate yourself and then somebody else will nominate you as a second.
You absolutely can put yourself up for the vice chair. Yes.
But we all understand that time commitments are really strong right now and really tight and, people may not want to put other people in that position.
So would anyone like to self-nominate for board chair? Let's start with board chair. Sounds like Brian is interested. No.
Absolutely. And if you are a public member, yes, you are eligible.
Yes, of course.
Now that he knows that, he's still not going to nominate.
We'll talk in November. Okay, so no other nominations heard. We do have a nomination for Dr. Max Rinaldi as board chair. Does that need a motion and second?
I can move to nominate Max Rinaldi for board chair. Do I have a second?
Second.
I believe Mr. Wadika was in first with a second. Sorry, Dr. Wallace. All those in favor, Dr. Borzik?
Aye.
Dr. Hamilton?
Aye.
Dr. Wallace?
Aye.
Mr. Wadika?
Aye.
Dr. Lamb, aye. Motion passes. Dr. Rinaldi is your new chair. Effective next meeting.
Effective after next meeting.
Effective
at the next meeting, not tomorrow.
I can make it effective right now. Just leave the room.
No. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Are we
All
good,
right.
Joanna? We're good?
Yeah. People did just vote, right? Everyone fast.
Yep.
Yes.
Yep, and we did a roll call vote.
Yep.
Yes.
Great. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
There's 5 of us. All 5 said A.
Okay, good.
All right, moving on to discussion and action items number 4, allied health. Oh, I'm sorry. We're going to actually put this one at the end because it's going to take a little bit more time and then possibly run into executive session. So we're going to jump down to V, which is rulemaking update with Director Burns.
Okay, thank you. I don't need I had some notes. I don't really need them. I don't have the rulemaking status sheet that you guys have hopefully become accustomed to. It needs some tweaking, and really what I need to do is take some of the things that we've done and accomplished and take those off of there and make it a little bit more palatable, a little bit more digestible. But the updates for now, I'll just give verbally. The recent or relatively recent VCPR rule changes that we've made went into effect on July 24th. They're available on our website. They're updated on the Secretary of State website. So those rules are in place. The only other rules that are in process are the fees, the rules related to fees. And so fees touch on quite a few places within rule, but they're all drafted, they're all ready to go. They're actually in the Secretary of State system. And all I've got to do is go in there and I wish it was this easy, but I've got to go in there and flip the switch to make those active. And that's going to happen on October 1st when those fees will come into play. So those are the only two real recent rule updates. But for November, I'll have the full slate of the status sheet updated and a lot of the things that have been done, I think that we're familiar with. They'll be cleaned off. And what will be on there we have quite a few prospective rule changes that we've been talking about for a while. So it'd be good to kind of focus on those, prioritize those, and see which ones we want to move forward with in 2026. Any questions? Okay, thank you all.
All right, we'll move down to discussion and action items number 6, applicants. This is with licensing administrator Brooke Walker.
It will be reviewed in executive session.
Thank you. We'll move on to discussion and action items 7. This is continuing education licensing survey with Director Burns.
Okay, thank you. Last time we talked about this last couple rounds. I worked with Dr. Lamb. Actually, Dr. Lamb really took the bull by the horns and got a really good kind of foundational survey drafted, and we just got that out to licensees this week. So this is a topic that's going on. I don't know if I would say nationwide, but I know it's going on regionally. With our counterparts in Washington, Alaska, California. So it's timely that we got this out. I think this data that we get back, it's going to be very helpful in terms of the licensee's perception of continuing education. But I actually think it's going to require maybe some follow-up, maybe if not another survey, at least some side-by-side comparisons with what's going on in other jurisdictions as far as CE goes. But it's the beginning of some valuable research into continuing education, and if it needs to be tweaked and how it needs to be tweaked, if it's more than a tweak, if it's more of a broader revamping of that. But these are the first questions that will kind of give us some indication of what the perceptions are out there and where we might be able to adjust as appropriate. Dr. Lamb, anything else on that?
No, I think just as a reminder, we got on this topic a little bit because we've had some recent questions about CE, either from people who are wanting to have their CE approved, or does their CE meet criteria for pain or antibiotic. The 1 hour CE for each of those that we're required to take as veterinarians. And I think they're just, as more questions got asked and less answers got delivered, it just became a bigger and bigger question. So it's just a time, I think, to revisit CE and decide if the relevant topics are still being requested for board members, and really what's the access. Because I think what came out of some of the questions around it was people were taking repetitive courses and not really taking new CE to meet those requirements, the pain and the antibiotic usage. And so therefore, is it really getting people CE, which should be continuing education, not just the same education, just to meet the requirement and check it off. So just kind of a review right now. Do any board members have any questions or anything that they'd like to add to the question list for continuing education, or things that they have concerns about with it? Feel free to unmute yourself and or just speak up if you're sitting in the room.
There's not any requirement for live CE in Oregon, right?
There's no, it's not stipulated one way or another.
So that's a good question too, whether you want to discuss that or not in the future.
Yeah, to modernize it, there's all kinds of questions in terms of tech and education. Yeah, it was probably time to modernize, our the options available for folks.
There are restrictions on what can be like medically based versus like professional development or like practice management or compassion fatigue, those sorts of continuing education courses. So there's a certain restriction number. Dr. Hamilton, do you have anything?
I don't. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Wallace? Dr. Borzek?
No.
Okay. All right, that takes care of item number 7. We'll move on to item number 8, VCPR update with Director Burns.
Okay, I don't know if this is really an update. It's more of a revisit. This is a couple of topics related to VCPR that we shelved at our last meeting, I think for time considerations. So we tabled it for this meeting. But these are there's some documents in your iPads that you've had to review. And so we're kind of we're revisiting these. The first is a communication from Oregon Humane Society related to VCPR and how it's applied to, or how it's established in teaching environments. The other document that we had to review is related to herd health and some questions around in-person examination to establish VCPR and what that looks like in reality in terms of herd animals. So I just wanted to introduce it. I think hopefully folks had a chance to look at this. We can have a discussion, and then, this is related. We've had a number of discussions today about VCPR or VCPR adjacent issues. This is, these are two more, but I thought they deserved their own focus.
We have one more document in there about microchipping and
Correct.
Friends of Felines question.
Yes, thank you. Yeah,
Which I think is a rollover too. We've seen this before, but I think we just haven't discussed the totality of all of them.
That's correct. So maybe we'll take these one at a time.
Sure.
Thoughts on VCPR establishment in teaching environments?
Start with Mr. Wadika.
That's not correct.
Okay.
I haven't seen this since the last time we looked at it, so
Okay.
I didn't know it was even in here. Apologize.
No worries. Dr. Hamilton?
I'm in the same boat with Brian on this one. Can we shelve this for a little later in the meeting or tomorrow and do that?
Let me go around the rest of the room and we'll decide that in a minute. Dr. Wallace? Sorry, Dr. Borzek. I always put you first, and then the one time you want to go first, I'm putting you last. Sorry. Go ahead, Dr. Wallace.
I didn't read it.
Dr. Borzek.
Okay, so my question about this is, don't we have a carve out in the Practice Act for anybody who is in a program of study, which I think that the students at OHS would be, that they can function as, I mean, I'm really summarizing this, so I'm probably butchering what it really says in the Practice Act, but they can function as a veterinarian as long as they're under. So in that case, wouldn't they be establishing the VCPR as a student in a program of study for veterinary medicine?
So this is Joanna. The exemption reads that for students, they have to be participating in diagnosis treatment of animals while engaged in an educational program. And they have to be under the direct supervision of an Oregon licensed veterinarian or veterinarian approved by the board or Oregon State University to supervise students. I'm wondering if that direct supervision is the issue?
Because I think they are under direct supervision of a veterinarian at OHS. It's just that that veterinarian might be directly supervising multiple students. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, but I'm just because I know what you're saying, and but I'm wondering if they're concerned.
So I can
Just
summarize.
looking at this, yeah.
I can summarize what their concern was because they actually posed the question to me originally, and I asked for them to pose it to Pete. Is that I think what's happening is they have students that are looking at animals, public animals for spay neuter, doing an exam for that, and then the animal undergoes surgery, and then another veterinarian might have to follow up later and prescribe something or do something. And so the question is, does a valid VCPR exist if the student basically did the exam? But what I'm hearing you say, Dr. Borzek, is you think that if the vet overseeing that student who did that exam and the vet was there directly on site that day, then the VCPR does exist with that veterinarian, because the student would have gone to them if there was any concerns and they would have addressed them. But that vet holds the VCPR. Is that what I hear you saying?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, or at least to me, that is maybe what the intention of how that was written is, because otherwise I think it's very binding for students in an educational setting. I don't know, but Joanna probably knows more than I do.
I don't. I know exactly what I just during the check-in.
Well, and I think it then goes back to what our definition of a VCPR is, which is the veterinarian must have sufficient knowledge of the animal to make a diagnosis. And that means that they have seen the animal within the last year or personally acquainted with the animal. Mm-hmm. And I feel like this is where it's causing problems, is it's the veterinarian has seen, well, they may not have been the one that had seen it. It was the student that examined it. So I can see where someone would be conflicted. Like, I didn't do the physical exam, my student under my direct supervision did.
But wouldn't the student be functioning as the veterinarian? I mean, not as the veterinarian, but as the veterinarian under the Practice Act in a program of study.
So the student, the exemption for the student just allows them to practice veterinary medicine as in diagnosis and treatment without a license. Otherwise, you'd have a problem, right? Because the students can't get a license until later. So that exemption allows them to do this without a license. The question they're posing is, can these unlicensed students create a VCPR for me, the licensee? Like, and this, I think I get it, because it's the same question of like, could I have, for example, a veterinary assistant create a VCPR? I think the answer would be no, right? So think of the students as unlicensed people. That's really what they are at this stage. And they're allowed to be unlicensed under those conditions, the exemption, but they're not veterinarians. They're unlicensed people practicing veterinary medicine under an exemption.
So I think their question from there is if the student is not allowed to establish the VCPR, then they don't have a valid VCPR, and then their vets are going to have to either look at these animals and do a secondary exam to establish a VCPR for treatment and prescribing purposes, or there has to be a carve out that the student can somehow provide the physical exam for the veterinarian to establish the VCPR.
I guess, but like, didn't we, I feel like at the last meeting, we talked about how a VCPR in a clinic by veterinarian A that was established with client A could be utilized by veterinarian B with client A. So I understand the difference between having a student do this versus having a licensed veterinarian do this. But I also feel like the carve out in the Practice Act is essentially saying, we realize you're in your 4th year, you're almost ready to graduate. I don't know.
So so policy wise, you can do that. They're just asking that you put that into rule. Because the carve out that's in there for veterinarians within a clinic practice wouldn't count because these students aren't veterinarians.
And we do have it in our definition, that the VCPR, once established, extends to other veterinarians, but those veterinarians are licensed by the board and are practicing. But we don't have a carve out that says that an unlicensed person can establish the VCPR. Yeah. Dr. Wallace, now that you've heard some of the conversation, do you want to weigh in on any comments or thoughts now?
Sure. I've tried to read it while we were talking. I was trying to look up in the Practice Act this stuff about the students, because in my common sense brain, like, yes, the students are under direct supervision of the veterinarian at OHS, and so it should be allowed to be used as the VCPR. But I also don't know, because I don't have a lot of firsthand experience with OHS, how many patients are coming back. Like, how much of it is a ongoing VCPR? My understanding was it was kind of like a rescue and they got a new home and moved on. So I don't understand completely the whole need, their concern about an ongoing VCPR, because my thought was those animals were owned by OHS, right? So they're also not owned by the general public. And maybe I'm not fully understanding what they do.
I think because they have another area where they do spay and neuter for the public, that's where they're seeing more public animals and more of what would be similar to a private practice model.
Right, but there's a veterinarian there. I mean, sure, those students aren't just spaying and neutering cats and dogs without a veterinarian standing there. A licensed veterinarian, I should say. But maybe are these people not licensed because they work for the university?
Well,
I didn't think about that.
They are going, it says in the letter, 2 weeks at the Animal Medical Learning Center, mostly on spay neuter, but then 1 week in the community veterinary hospital on community medicine.
Right, but I'm saying the supervising veterinarian for those students, that person is licensed. Because doesn't OSU have an exemption? Those people don't have to be licensed with the OVMEB?
So they have both. They have Kurt Miller over there, who is an adjunctive faculty member with OSU, and then they have other veterinarians that are Oregon Humane Society veterinarians that I don't believe are adjunctive faculty.
Okay. So the biggest hang up is just that the students are doing the exam. The hands-on exam, that's the hang up.
The students are in an approved course and doing the hands-on exam, and then who creates the VCPR? Or how does the VCPR get created by the direct supervising vet?
Can I throw out like what I have in my head as what might happen?
Of course.
Yeah, absolutely.
So if an animal came in and what the physical exam was done by a veterinary student, was spayed, maybe went back out into the general population, developed like an incision site infection, and then needed a prescription associated with that. Do you think that that's what they're talking about? So that then they would have, the VCPR was already established by the veterinary student, but it seems like they would do an exam again then. I don't know.
I don't think they are doing an exam again. I think they have parameters, like if the animal doesn't fall, like if the animal has a completely normal exam, normal TPR, at least this is when I was in vet school, the animal had a completely normal exam. The licensed vet didn't re-examine it. But if you had concerns, then you punt it up like, oh, I'm seeing lameness. And now the licensed vet is doing additional diagnostics, or, oh, the temperature was out of range. Then the other vet was looking at things.
Okay, yeah. So that's where my brain was at with that. And then, yeah, when they're at the community veterinary hospital, I think they are seeing, owned animals that aren't owned by OHS, where a veterinary student could be doing that initial exam in the exam room. And then I could see a situation where a prescription needs to be pushed out and the veterinarian who's overseeing the veterinary student hasn't looked at that animal.
Dr. Hamilton, do you have any comments?
So it says here, in either hospital, the student to faculty ratio might be as high as 3-to-1. So I'm guessing, for every 3 students, there's 1 faculty member. And then it says during check-in, students are examining an average of 40 patients within a 1-hour period, which I'm guessing is quite a show. But I guess it says a staff or faculty veterinarian is assigned to the students to answer questions and confirm exam findings. How do you confirm exam findings but not doing their own physical exam? I guess that doesn't make sense how you could confirm that. But I think if they need to hire more people so that a licensed veterinarian is confirming that a good VCPR is done, then I think they should do that. So Baker County is one of the places we ship like hundreds of cats a year to OHS, and probably Dr. Wallace's people in her practice do as well. And they don't want them spayed. They prefer, if they're healthy, they do not want the local veterinarian spaying, which I don't have a problem with. They want that there. They make decent money on these cats. I mean, the people don't get them for free. And I think if they have to hire another veterinarian or 2 to make sure that good exams are done and good surgery is done, I think that's on them.
Mr. Wadika?
I mean, I kind of feel like the direct supervision is the word is like what establishes the VPCR, VC.
VCPR.
Thank you. That's all right. So if that's in, I mean, do they not sign off like, as the supervising veterinarian, like, okay, I don't know how it works, but I'd imagine it's just they sign off on it if nothing is a concern. And then anything that is concerning gets brought up and discussed and sorted out. So I guess all that to say, I'm okay with the students establishing the VCPR.
I'm just looking through our rules and under 875010045 student interns, we have a specific rule that says complete admission records, including records recording the statement made by the client concerning the patient's problem and history. Student interns may also record their own observation of the patient. However, student interns cannot state or record their opinion concerning diagnosis of the patient. And I kind of feel like our rule already prohibits them from finishing a physical exam if we're saying that they can't really, like, even apparently healthy is a diagnosis in my world, because I get to see a lot of healthy ones that I'm saying, hey, they're healthy. So I don't know how people feel about that, knowing that we have that in there, or feel like that's completely separate and I'm just going down a total rabbit hole on that.
Can you read that OAR again for me?
Yes, it's under permits and licenses, student interns. So it's 875-010-0045.
Got it.
And it's two capital A, or three capital A. There's like little a and then capital A, which I never understand. I always need indentations, but I know we don't get those in these.
Is there a whiteboard or a chat in this Teams thing that you could type that out?
Or Brooke, can you just bring up that whole rule? Yeah. That would be great. And we can just scroll down. And then there is an exemption down at the very bottom, little f, that says student interns may perform other acts not specifically enumerated herein under this supervision. However, they may not administer a rabies vaccine. So we get back to that whole, they can't administer a rabies vaccine unless they're a licensed CVT or DVM.
So are they considered an intern at OHS when it's part of their curriculum?
A student intern, not a veterinary intern. Because a veterinarian intern would be what's licensed by our board for the first year of practice. Right, Brooke?
Right. But I interpreted this rule as student intern, meaning a veterinary student coming to my private practice, not a veterinary student enrolled in their curriculum at OHS.
I think number one defines it as any person wishing to work in Oregon as a student intern may do so if she is engaged in a student intern program administered by a veterinary college or university, or a veterinary technology program approved by the board or the American Veterinary Medical Association. So I assumed it was for everyone. Dr. Borzik, do you know better?
That's how I read that too. Like and that's how it is on the CVT side as well. Like if they are going out into a clinical site that isn't like, our students go to OHS as well, but if it's a clinical site that isn't OHS, it's just a clinical site that they're going out to practice in, they're still covered as a student intern because they're doing that as part of a CRN of a course that's required by their degree in our program. And I think the same is true in vet school. Like Dr. Katie, when you have somebody come out, I think they're doing that as one of their like senior rotations.
Right. I'm just saying, just like you said, your students go to OHS as part of schooling. So that is a little, I think the expectation is they get more hands-on by going to OHS than they do in going to a private practice, right? They're there being supervised by faculty of OSU. The expectation is they're allowed to do a bit more than an intern going into private practice.
I think it probably varies on the practice and the student would be my nuance. Like I think it probably varies by the practice and the student, right? If there's a practice who, like we have some practices that regularly take our students, even though we don't partner with them as a specific course. We don't have a CRN that's a specific course like the vet school has with OHS or like we have with OHS, but we partner with that clinic like almost every time our students are doing clinical externships. So they have a very strong framework for training. Like they have established different protocols that, you know, a student who comes in who has this much experience and can show that their comfort level at this level might do things that a student who comes in who's never been in a clinical setting before or has very limited experience in a clinical setting wouldn't be able to do. But then we also have clinical sites that we partner with that we don't partner with as often, and it's a little bit less structured.
Right, but
Right, but I don't think this
I don't
rule
know that I'm saying this the
differentiates
way I
between
want to.
externships. I think what you're describing is an extern, like a school approved externship is, I think, what we're talking about. And I don't think this rule does differentiate between a school approved externship and practice that's happening.
But isn't OHS part of their curriculum?
Yes, it is.
Right, but
It's
so
not
would
an
an
extra.
externship.
It's not an extra. It's supervised by the school. It's actually part of their education.
As should an externship be if they're acting under the exemption.
I kind of, Dr. Lamb, I kind of wonder if all of our discussion is moot because of the thing that you found where it says, however, student interns cannot state or record their opinion concerning diagnosis of the patient. Because we could go round and round about what this is all about, but if that sentence really negates, if that sentence states that the student intern cannot make a diagnosis, whether that's healthy or otherwise, then I don't know that the rest of our discussion really matters.
Well, you can change this rule too. This is your rule, so you can change it.
That's where I'm hanging up, because they go to OHS to do exactly that, right? To get hands-on experience and say, I think this cat has an abscess.
Well, as
And
Joanna
then talk
said
to the teacher.
Joanna said before, they're exempt from practicing veterinary medicine because they're in a program. So
And
yeah,
under
I'm
the
a little
exemption,
confused.
they're under the direct supervision of a licensed veterinarian or someone approved by the board. So both those have to be true, which is they have to be in a program and they have to be acting under the direct supervision of an Oregon licensed veterinarian or veterinarian approved by the board.
So do we just need to modify the rule that I found and just take out the diagnosis part so that it gives them permission? Or do we need to actually give them permission to allow the student to do an exam to complete a VCPR? And I did want to follow up because Glenn put a question in the chat, but did he leave the room?
Just left.
I didn't want to ignore him. Just for the record, Glenn with OVMA put in a clinical practice, doesn't the VCPR remain with the practice, which would allow another DVM in the clinic to review the records and continue with the VCR, including ongoing treatment? Isn't this similar to the situation at OHS? And I think in our definition, we do address the in clinical practice, another veterinarian reviewing the records, but I don't think that's the question in this that we're discussing today. I think we're discussing how does a VCPR get established by a student, just for clarification, in case somebody saw that question and wanted an answer. Sorry, Dr. Borzek, I'll go back to you since I kind of jumped on you.
Fine. I mean, I think that's a little bit where my brain was going too, was we're talking about OHS, but what this could also pertain to a private practice where a student is there, again, taking one of their, I can't remember what they're called in vet school anymore, but like an internship course as part of their program of study, but
Like
they're
an off-site rotation.
Yeah, but they're in a private clinic, and then they make a diagnosis and establish a VCPR, and maybe that's where Glenn was going, I don't know, then that theoretically could be or would be probably used by the rest of the veterinarians in that clinic, where I think the repercussions could be different than in the shelter setting.
Well, do you mean in the shelter setting, or do you mean in
No,
what?
I mean in a private practice, like we could just in a GP or in an emergency practice or.
Well, I'm just comparing it because Oregon Humane is talking about their shelter and they're talking about their community practice. Or do you mean in comparison to like a facility that's acting with the university?
I'm saying that, so OHS, like in my mind, OHS has worked with OSU for a really long time. They have, faculty members that, it's like very integrated. And I think changing the Practice Act rules for that scenario, to me, kind of makes sense. However, when I think about the implications of changing the Practice Act rules on the potential implications for a private practice, that's where I feel like there's some other repercussions. Like it's the veterinarians in a private practice, one might know that an intern was there, but the others may not know. And then could that diagnosis or VCPR be used within that GP or ER? And are we comfortable with that? I feel like it might need some more teasing out there. Like the board might need, I would be interested in hearing other people's opinions on, because it's a different scenario, right? It's a different setup. There's not a faculty member that's on staff from OSU at every private practice or whatever, obviously. So
what I hear you saying is you definitely see a difference between a VCPR being created by a veterinary student in a program that's assigned to them as part of their curriculum versus doing like an externship with another outside agency that might have affiliation, but not like, it's not part of their curriculum per se. It's like more they're just going out to see real world that may not be under the direct curriculum of OSU or another vet clinic or vet hospital or teaching hospital, I meant to say.
Yeah, or have oversight of faculty that's, they know that their sole responsibility is this, and I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Dr. Wallace, do you have comments about what Dr. Borzek just brought up? Concerns, or feel like we need to tease it out in two different directions, or?
Yeah, I feel like the OHS experience is drastically different than going out into private practice. I just, from what mind you, I haven't had a student come in a long time. When they come, it's like a required class. So it feels no different than what happens at OSU. So I don't understand. I'm struggling to see the problem with the VCPR, because my understanding is the students are supervised by a veterinarian. So that is the person that has the VCPR. So, but that's
So if
where I'm struggling. I don't know that I'm wording it right.
Let me understand. So if you had a student that came out and worked with you and they did the physical exam on an animal, where would you feel as the practitioner you needed to step in to create the VCPR? Would you repeat the whole physical? Would you? What part of it?
So when
would-
students come, I'm generally right there beside them.
Yeah.
They don't do anything without me standing right there.
Right.
They may take a temperature or listen to the heart while I'm talking to another client, but like I am within line's eyesight. And then I will come in there, like they're never alone to do anything.
Yeah.
And as a student, I mean, we weren't alone to do things either. That's that's my hang up is I feel like there's got to be an at OHS. I feel like this is a unique situation because it's part of their education. At OHS, there has to be an veterinarian overseeing what they do. Like, it just doesn't make sense to me that they're just freewheeling it.
So what you're saying also fits the definition of direct supervision that's in that rule we were just looking at.
Right, but
yeah,
the VCPR is their issue, right?
Well, this is the question, which is what I began with, which is I think one of the questions is how does direct supervision work in the scenario they're posing? Because the direct supervision is a statutory requirement.
See,
and I don't know. I mean, I don't know enough about your profession.
I guess my question was, I thought their question stemmed around if a student does the physical exam and a physical exam is required for a veterinarian who's licensed to create the VCPR, then can that physical exam that the student has done qualify as the physical exam that direct veterinarian supervision to allow them to create the VCPR?
See, and I think because it's a teaching situation that is required by the university, that yes, it's fine. It's different. It's a unique situation.
Dr. Hamilton?
Yeah, good.
So, I mean, I haven't really changed from where I was, I guess. In their statement, they say they confirmed the physical exam, which means to me that if they came to my practice, I'm going to do the physical exam with it and I'm going to sign it. It's going to be me on record for the VCPR, even though they're going to go through all the steps to do that. Okay. Because I'm the only one that is a veterinarian at that point. And I sort of feel like these students should be under that sort of direct supervision. They're paying a boatload of money to be there, and you can't have somebody confirm their physical exam findings. I just think I think it goes to the veterinarian. The VCPR has to be through the veterinarian providing direct supervision.
Dr. Hamilton, what part where's the cutoff in that? Do you feel like the vet that's doing the direct supervision needs to do the full physical exam? Or what that vet feels comfortable with, or where our rule says where the diagnosis cuts it off, like it's cut off at diagnosis. The student can't make the diagnosis.
So I don't know. I mean, it would be interesting to see more of what their caseload is, right? But for instance, we do tons of feral cats, right? And so the physical exam preoperatively often is pretty limited, right? So I don't know what their caseload is that way, but I think it's what the veterinarian feels they can defend as doing the best, an adequate physical exam in their particular situation. But it doesn't sound like it's undoable. If one set of students is doing the preoperative exams, as I think I read it, and the others are doing the surgeries, okay. I mean, it isn't like you can supervise 3 students and I feel like do a good job with that. It doesn't take a veterinarian as long to do a physical exam as it does somebody that's new. So I think, I think it's a doable thing, putting it on. I mean, it says they require direct supervision, and I think until we change the rule, we have to kind of go with that.
I guess, do you want to change the rule?
Do I want to change the rule? No, I think they
Okay.
should. I think they should be directly supervised, and that veterinarian should sign for the VCPR.
If I may, didn't Joanna earlier say that this is a policy area?
Well, the direct supervision part is in statute. What you want to do about VCPR requirements, that's a policy for you guys. So you could change the VCPR requirements for this situation, but the direct supervision part you can't.
But it kind of sounds to me like we're kind of split on some things, but when we go back to that rule that says that the student can record their observations, however, they can't record their opinion about the diagnosis of the patient, is where we kind of get into, if they're at OSU and they're part of an OSU program, maybe yes or no, or like Dr. Hamilton said, they should be under the direct supervision of a veterinarian at this stage. So that should come out of the veterinarian and establish the VCPR. How are people feeling about just citing that rule and giving it back to OHS and saying this is where we feel like it exists, that it lives under this rule? But I don't know if people want more information from OHS so that they could tease it out more. It feels like we've spent a decent amount of time though discussing this, and we've kind of gone round and round as opposed to really a yes or no. And maybe it is more like where it lives in that rule.
That's where my thoughts were going, is maybe my iPad went to sleep and it requires a login. So I don't know the guy's name. This guy right down here, Steve. Coaches. Maybe he needs to come tell us what the protocol is and how the students are supervised so that we can understand more fully, because my expectation is that the supervising veterinarian, like Dr. Hamilton said, is right there.
Do you feel comfortable, Dr. Wallace, if we sent back the rule right here that says that a complete exam with the observations, but not diagnosis, and then if they need more clarity, that we need to hear from Dr. Kotchis?
Well, I'm hesitant because we've got to teach these students to do a diagnosis at some point. And I believe that's kind of the uniqueness of this OHS relationship with OSU, is because they don't get that hands-on experience going to private practices or even at the university, right? Because they're dealing with specialty cases, that this is the one chance that these students actually get to practice the skills that rule is telling them they can't do.
It sounds like we need to just have coaches come and talk to the board about the specifics. They can ask the specifics. Does that sound like a good plan?
If that's where the board lands, I'm happy to do that.
Go ahead.
Is the rule around that students can't make the diagnosis, is that unique to Oregon, or is that a fairly universal rule for veterinary students?
I mean, when I was in vet school, I just had a clinician there and you made the diagnosis, but they were basically like, yes, we agree with you. And I felt like it was a team effort. Like, I didn't feel like it was separated, but I wasn't on the other side of it where I was worried as a licensee that maybe I was signing off on a VCPR that I didn't really create at that point either.
Like, if I was to rewrite that rule, I'd almost just add final to diagnosis. You know, it's like, you can make a diagnosis, but you just can't make the final diagnosis, meaning your direct, the veterinarian providing the direct supervision would would counter you or sign off on it.
Like make the
Like a
direct,
confirming.
yeah, would make a confirming diagnosis.
Right.
Yeah, I was looking at that same thing and thinking that I was going the other way, saying I might just remove state, because in my experience, it was similar to what you're describing, Dr. Lamb, is you state your physical exam findings, your tentative diagnosis to the clinician, and then the clinician says, I agree with you, or, whatever. So if we just removed state, they couldn't record their opinion about the diagnosis. That would be the overseeing veterinarian's responsibility, or the student operating, after on specific directions from the overseeing veterinarian. But stating seems pretty I mean, I think that ties into what Dr. Katie is saying, is that's the whole point. They should be able to state what they think their diagnosis is, because that's what they need to be doing when they go out into practice.
So student interns can state but not record their diagnosis on the patient?
I mean, I think, looking at it that way, or the way that Brian was looking at it, but just adjusting that so that we leave space for that. I don't know that that really even answers, though, what Dr. Kochis is asking, but I think it definitely brought to light something in the Practice Act that I think limits that part of the student's education.
Do you think they meant state to the client?
Maybe. I don't know.
Right.
I think this rule is really meant for students going out into general practice, and they can't go out there and just be like, oh, I'm a vet student, I think your cat has anaplasm, like something totally off the wall. I think that's what the rule is for. I don't think it's for this situation,
But I do also agree with Dr. Hamilton that they should be getting mentorship and confirmation in whatever they're finding or not finding. It's helpful to have somebody say, yep, I think that's a healthy pet, like when you're a baby vet.
What if we took out, however, a student interns cannot state or record their opinion concerning diagnosis of the patient, and just put something separate in that says diagnosis, diagnosis of the patient will be confirmed by the direct supervising veterinarian. And then that kind of solves, like, hey, we're putting the veterinarian who's the direct supervisor in charge of it. And I mean, the student can state it all they want, or they can even put it in a piece of paper, but it has to be confirmed by the direct. Any diagnosis from the student has to be confirmed by the direct supervising veterinarian. Dr. Hamilton, how do you feel about that? Does that help with your side of it?
I mean, but that's what they're trying to avoid, right? They don't want to be responsible for bad physical exams, right? I mean, really, that's what they don't want to be responsible for. And it's not just what you state in a physical exam, it's what you don't state, what you don't pick up, what you don't notice. And so that's the part that I think is a little slippery on that. Like, it's not just what you state, it's what doesn't get acknowledged. What you didn't notice it was icteric, or, stuff that,
I guess where
yeah.
I was going, though, is if you have the direct veterinarian confirming the diagnosis, then that gives the direct supervising veterinarian the ability to do the complete exam again and look for things like it's what you don't state that actually causes the diagnosis. So they're just confirming it, like, oh, if the animal has completely normal TPR and everything looks normal, I'll confirm with that student, because I trust them, that it's an apparently healthy animal. So we're just asking the veterinarian to accept responsibility as directly supervising the student to whatever level they want to on the exam to confirm the diagnosis.
I have a question for consideration from the compliance division. If the board received a complaint against OHS because an animal died during or after surgery, would the exam by the student be sufficient?
It would go back to the veterinarian.
Dr. Hamilton, where do you feel right now? Do you want to change rules, hear from Dr. Coaches about more information, or table this for a different time?
Oh, no, you're not out of here until this is settled, Allison. I will stay here as long as it takes.
Awesome. Can you drive in and settle it in person with me?
Yes, I can. So maybe let's look at it this way. And so let's look at it this way. So let's say you adopted a cat from OHS. It was, I don't know how long they wait after their surgeries until, but let's just say I don't know, let's say it's 10 days. Okay. And you adopt it, and there's a problem that maybe should have been noted on the physical exam, right? So I guess what I think is I don't think a student should be on the hook for that, right? I don't think that's I mean I think if we look at it from how does this play out in real life, and I'm not sure I have it right, but I still think it should be the supervising veterinarian, which if that's the case, then I don't think it really changes where we're already at. Does it? It's a question.
Dr. Wallace?
I feel like there's got to be direct supervision in the whole educational process at OHS. So that direct supervising veterinarian is the VCPR veterinarian. And if that's not the case, then I need to hear from Dr. Coaches.
Dr. Borzek?
Yeah, I feel the same as Dr. Hamilton and Dr. Katie. But I do think the student interns cannot state or record their opinion is like a side thing that maybe the board wants to change or maybe they don't. And I liked what you suggested in terms of saying that the supervising veterinarian will confirm the diagnosis or make the final diagnosis, some sort of verbiage like that. Because I think it's important for students to be able to practice diagnosing. And I don't know that people are actually implementing the Practice Act for this specific line item, exactly how it's written, because I don't think that's probably happening unless it pertains directly to client communication, where a student is not telling a client, stating to a client what they believe the diagnosis is. But if we wanted to clarify that, I think it is a little bit of a fuzzy part of the Practice Act that probably could use some clarification.
Mr. Whitaker? He said, I agree with that if you couldn't hear Brian. Okay. So I think we're kind of still we need to hear from Dr. Kochis.
Go back to him with reference to the rule that we're questioning.
Right.
Ask him for some more information.
Mm-hmm.
And I am asking the board, does a potential rule change here for one specific situation, one unique situation, or would this be applicable to more? I mean, is it worth changing a rule if it's only to solve an issue or a question of unclarity with one operator?
Dr. Wallace, how do you feel about that rule change for the student interns can't state or record their opinion? Do you feel like that's just for Oregon Humane, or do you think that's for, and the suggestion of saying that they can state it, but they're not the ones that can basically document it or confirm it? Because I know you had an opinion on that.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like
Brooke, can you bring that
They-
rule up?
it makes total sense to me that they should not be, speaking their mind out in private practice about what's going on, what they think's going on. Like, I I don't know that the rule needs changed. I feel like OHS is a unique situation that is not really about that rule, but more about the supervising veterinarian and the VCPR.
Which we could answer them under policy and just give them guidance.
You just want it under documented policy so that you could refer back to it when it comes up again and save some time with us all discussing it again. Dr. Hamilton, how do you feel about the sentence, however, student interns cannot state or record their opinion concerning diagnosis of the patient outside of this discussion of VCPR? Do you think we need to go into rulemaking and change this at some point?
I'll tell you what, okay, I'm just gonna tell you what I think. I agree with Reagan, Dr. Borzak on that. I agree with her on that. But I just think in the list of rule changing that we should do, I don't know that that's in our top 10. I mean, but I agree. I'm not against it. I just think, I think we have some bigger fish, but in principle, I agree with it. I just don't know if we have the time to dedicate to it.
Yeah, I mean, I think it has wider application than just OHS.
Right.
Whether we want to tackle it or not, is a different issue.
So bring Dr. Coaches in November.
Sure.
And then maybe flag this if we decide to change the rest of the rule to kind of circle back and decide if this is going to be part of, I have a feeling that CBT stuff's going to change. Well, this isn't CBT stuff, but stuff's going to change in here maybe after you speak with Dr. Coaches. So maybe there's other stuff and you combine it into one.
Okay.
Sorry, Dr. Hamilton, that we did not resolve that issue today.
That's one of 3 I introduced. You guys ready to tackle the other 2?
Yeah.
Thank you all for that. Seriously, we postponed it, but it's good to get a good, spend some good time on it. But herd health and VCPR, what are folks' thoughts here?
So I'm going to lead on this one real quick because where I'm struggling with this and sort of what came up with Dr. Schultz today too, is that in our general rules and general definitions, and if you don't mind Brooke bringing that up, maybe it's already in there. I don't know. In our general definitions under 875-005-0005, our VCPR definition says the veterinarian must have sufficient knowledge of the animal to initiate at least a general or preliminary diagnosis of the medical condition of the animal. This means the veterinarian has seen the animal within the last year and is personally acquainted with the care of the animal by a virtual, I'm sorry, not a virtual, strike that, by virtue of a physical exam of the animal or a medically appropriate and timely visit to the premises. But then when we get into our minimum standards of practice, it says that under 1, you can do records for a herd or flock. But then when you jump down to 2, you have a required examination to establish a VCPR. And I feel like we keep getting hung up in this, is that if you're in what Dr. Hamilton said this morning a little bit about, we have a little leeway with herds and flocks because the definition gives it to us. But then we get into this weird category where we're requiring it a physical exam. And so I guess my concern is if we have a herd or a flock or a colony or a collection or a sanctuary of animals where somebody's taking care of that as more of a unit, where is the cutoff for doing a physical examination of each animal versus not? So this came up kind of tangentially after the VCPR rules got discussed and went into rulemaking as kind of a side thing. And I think it came up once again, and Joanna, correct me if I'm wrong, there was like some other situation that it brought back up and we were like, are they exempt or are they not exempt? So Dr. Wallace, I'll start with you.
Yikes, because I do not do a physical exam on even one heifer that comes through the chute for a Bangs vaccine. And you have 300 to do in a day? Like, the herd health exam is different. So, there has to be, and the same for dairy vets that go pregging and stuff like that, that there has to be some, I guess, a different definition of an exam that's allowable for herd or flock.
For Dr. Wallace, would you say that
I can't
what you're
hear.
doing is a medically appropriate or timely visit to the premises where the animal is kept?
Yes.
There it is, because it says or, it doesn't say and. So you have to do, see them
wasn't
within
it
the
the
last year to be
next-
personally acquainted.
But then in the next rule, in 875015030, to establish or maintain a VCPR requires an exam unless exempt under one, but one is talking about medical records. It's not talking about the exam. That you just don't have to keep a record of them. It doesn't say that you don't have to physically examine them. It's just really, I just feel like the wording's confusing.
Yeah.
Dr. Hamilton?
Yeah.
So I think the wording is beautifully confusing, right? Because I mean, what I think they tried to do was leave a lot of a leeway. And functionally, what happens and I'm sure maybe Dr. Wallace does it this way, is like I go out to ranches, all the time where I am just going to and I visit, it's a pain in the rear because I've got to drive an hour and then I'll spend a couple of hours, right? Driving around a ranch, meeting everybody, seeing everybody, and then driving back. And basically I charge them what we charge for an office call and mileage because and so it's not a moneymaker by any means, but I feel like given the way the rule is written, that if I've been there more recently, that can substitute for that. But if I haven't, we are meeting what the law says without having to record a physical exam in each one of the heifers like Dr. Wallace is talking about. But I would say this, that a lot of people don't appreciate, and Dr. Wallace, I think, would say this. I mean, when you're bangsing 300 head, you talk about a lot of things. You talk about all that's going on in Burns, but you also talk about herd health and as you know, you're treating, I mean, there's oftentimes during, a routine vaccination thing, you are dealing with problems. You're looking at parasites, talking about vaccination, stopping to treat an abscess, or looking at a bad foot, or a myriad of things. So it's not like you just vaccinate and you don't do anything else. You actually end up doing quite a bit of other veterinary medicine. So I think they're trying to make it so that, we can, I think it's a sort of a happy middle ground. And I wish we could make it like tighter, like the verbiage could be tighter, but I actually think it kind of works the way it is. I don't know what Dr. Wallace thinks about it, but that's kind of what I think.
Yeah. I'm curious, like when we treat a lot of bad eyes, abscesses, do you do a TPR on those abscesses and bad eyes that you treat? Dr. Hamilton?
I wish I could do this privately, but no.
Right. No, we're being honest here. I don't
I'm
either.
being honest. Like Like,
I don't either.
you're racing dark, right? You got
Yeah.
200 head to go and you want to
Yeah.
get done in the light. And so no, I don't.
Yeah. Right, me neither.
So Dr. Hamilton and Dr. Wallace, not to put you on the spot at all, I really don't intend to do this. But under 1, do you feel like you've established a VCPR, or do you feel like 2A prevents you from establishing a VCPR? Because when I read 1, it says medical records. It says nothing about this establishes my VCPR because I go out there in a timely manner. I don't disagree with you that it's impossible to do a physical exam on all of those cows. And under the definition, you're allowed to have a VCPR. But then I feel like our rules say 2 different things. You only have to keep medical records for the herd in a herd way. But then under 2A, you're creating to establish the VCPR to begin with, you need an exam for those animals. Or do you not look at it that way? Dr. Borzek, while Dr. Wallace and Dr. Hamilton are thinking.
Could we fix this by just stating unless exempted under 1 of this section or unless exempted under whatever that other one is, 21, that states that it's a herd. Yeah, but where the definition is. Because then you would tie the 2 together.
I think some of what's confusing is that word exempt, because it doesn't say in 1, here's an exemption to
the
physical
VCPR
exam. But I think you could fix it easily. I think you could say, unless it is a flock or herd where a VCPR has been established, you must do the following physical examinations. I think the to reflect, if the policy call you want is you don't have to do a physical exam for a flock or herd as long as it meets the timely and appropriate visits is what you have on your VCPR definition. But yeah, I think this language could easily be fixed to reflect that if that's where the board wants to go.
That's what I would be in support of, is just making the verbiage, changing the verbiage so that it fits what happens in reality. And it feels like, yeah, thanks for confirming, Joanna, that it might be a pretty easy fix.
The fix would be required examinations unless exempt under 1, where a VCPR is established through a timely and medically appropriate visit, or a medically appropriate and timely visit to the premises. This section.
I think the exempt under 1 is part of what's making this confusing.
Yeah.
But I also think this whole rule is a little, like, sometimes it's about records, sometimes it's about substance, right? So I think this whole rule could easily be rewritten to be better. But that said, I think under required examinations, you could just say, unless it is a flock or herd to which there has been regular and timely visits, or whatever that VCPR language is, a physical examination is required, blank, if that's what the board as a policy call thinks is appropriate.
I just put in the chat what the AAVSB has as their VCPR wording.
And that's what we have in our definition, medically appropriate and timely visits to the premises where the animals are kept. So Joanna, do you think that's cleaner if it's put under 2, or do you think it's cleaner to put it into 1 somehow?
So without overhauling all of it, which frankly you might want to do at some point, I think so 2 is about required examinations, and I think that's what we're talking about, which is when is a physical exam required or not. So I think it would be cleaner if we just want to do a quick fix to this rule to just make it clear under 2. Here's when a physical examination is required, here's when it's not. And you might want to think about that rule, like you were just having this discussion, which is 24 hours of scheduled anesthesia. That's different than establishing the VCPR, for example. I would think that would be your call.
Well, I definitely feel like this rule needs more work, but I'm also very interested in resolving this conundrum because I think it is a big conundrum. in a quicker time frame than probably an overhaul's gonna allow.
So
For the
let
la-
me ask, if you look at the
I'm-
required examinations, other than the VCPR, are there other ones that you wouldn't require for a flock or herd?
Well, I'm wondering if the language doesn't come after to establish or maintain a VCPR.
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering too.
Yeah.
If that's the only one where you would say no physical exam is needed for a flock or herd.
So you would just put after A, to establish or maintain a VCPR unless exempt under one where a medically appropriate and timely visit to the premises where the animals are kept.
Yes, although I would leave that exempt under one language out of it because I think that's part of it confusing. But I think
Okay.
you could say, for example, to establish or maintain a VCPR unless it is a whatever the not physical
Medically,
exam.
yeah, it's in the chart. Or chat.
Yep, just cut and paste it right there.
I'm gonna go out on a limb here because it's my last meeting and just move to support to go into rulemaking to establish or maintain a VCPR unless a medically appropriate and timely visit to the premises is where the animals are kept or a group of animals are kept, to just provide clarity there. Do I have a second?
I
Mr.
second.
Wadika, second. All those in favor, Dr. Borzik. Sorry, we didn't capture it, Dr. Borzik.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you
Nope.
now.
Oh, okay. Aye.
Dr. Hamilton,
Aye.
Dr. Wallace,
Aye.
Mr. Wadika,
Aye.
Dr. Lamb, aye. Motion passes, just to make that correction and hopefully to go into rulemaking.
Gotcha.
There's still more steps in that process, right?
Oh, yeah. No,
Lots
we'd
of
have to,
steps.
we'd have to, we'll go through the full process, drafting, review, and then public, and then finalization. It'll take some time, but we can start it.
Awesome.
Okay?
Okay. We have the third one to talk about, right?
We do.
The
Everybody doing
microchipping.
okay? Yeah, microchipping. It's the last page, I believe, in our packets. We received the following question from Friends of Felines. Oh, and this was submitted to you late at the last meeting, and then we tabled it for now. Considerations. OVMEB does not have jurisdiction over shelters. However, there's a scope of practice question at the heart of this. Also, the VCPR consideration.
This is Joanna. I might save you some time, which
Yay.
is I've been working on advice for this. I'm sorry I didn't get it done for this
Okay.
meeting, but I promise I will have advice on the microchipping issue in shelters and some other shelter advice that you've asked me for at the next meeting.
Perfect.
Table a little bit longer.
Yes, let's table it for advice.
Okay.
Dr. Wallace, did you have a question though? Because it came back on the screen looking like you might have a question.
No, everything just got gobbledygook for a while, but now I'm back.
Okay. Dr. Hamilton or Dr. Borzik, because I can't see your faces. Any comments or questions, or you good with tabling?
Yep, I'm good with tabling.
Great.
Brian, you good? Okay, we're all good in the room for tabling as well. So, okay. That brings us to Allied Health, which is for the FAQ review with Joanna and Director Burns.
Okay, and this one's a little, we're gonna go a little off script here. We have some legal advice related to Allied Health. And so Joanna, Joanna, correct me if I'm wrong, I think we should receive that before we really look at these. What we have here are some FAQs we've compiled to kind of help people that call in. We're getting a lot of calls. They're coming in more often from allied practitioners, the public, people, potentially wanting to take coursework in these fields, and they want some information before they do so. So Joanna compiled these, but Joanna, is it right? You want to, we should get some legal advice first before we jump on these?
Well, yeah, particularly on the allied healthcare professional. On the second one, if you want to look at it, that's literally just your statutes. Everything that's in, I mean, the first one is too, but so what we did here is just say step one, here's the definition of veterinary medicine, and I put it into bullet points. If it's not the practice of veterinary medicine, then it's not really your board. Then you don't need a license from this board, maybe a different board, who knows? If it is the practice of veterinary medicine, then that's a list of all the exemptions. And if they're exempt, they don't need a license. If it is veterinary medicine and they don't fit an exemption, they need a license. But I don't know if you want to discuss that one now, or do you just want to hold off until we give legal advice on the other one?
Why don't we listen to legal advice on the other one, just because it's so tangential to this, and then we discuss both of these back in public session after. Does that sound like a plan?
Sure.
It is 3:15 right now. Do you want to move into executive now, since there's no other public, and then discuss these and then jump back into public today or tomorrow morning, depending on how long the conversation is?
That sounds good.
All right, sounds good. So anybody who's virtual, jump over to the executive session. It's 3:16 right now.
Allison,
Yeah.
sorry.
Yeah.
Are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
So this has to be said in public.
Sure.
It has been a remarkable honor to serve on the board with you. And for the rest of you will not witness a greater, excellence doesn't begin to describe the work she's done on the board. And I just can't say how much what you have done has been good for our profession. It's been excellent for me. And I just want to say thank you in public because that's where you deserve to hear it.
Wow. Thank you, Dr. Hamilton. Now that you got me crying, it's definitely been an honor to serve with you as well as everybody, that has joined us in this room and on the board virtually. Dr. Hamilton, you and I came on the board together, and I feel like the learning curve was steep at times for us, and we got a lot of experience in a lot of different ways, and it's been an honor to serve with you too. And you have also made this an incredible journey as well. I can't begin to thank everybody for the diversity of experiences and knowledge base. I've learned so much from everybody on the board and the staff as well, just the journeys that everybody has taken through investigative processes and their own personal experiences in veterinary medicine and with other boards. Joanna and Director Burns, both of you have brought other information from other boards to us, which has also been helpful. And I think it's just made this board an extremely strong board. I'm really excited to see where this board goes in the next few months. I may pop back on to your public meetings just to kind of see what the discussion is. I can't vote, but hey, I'll be here like just being a little fly on the wall or something. So thank you, Dr. Hamilton. That was very kind.
Thank you, Dr. Hamilton. Thank you all. Anyone else? Well, good.
We do need to read that executive session language though before we leave.
I'm just gonna do the gavel and just go out the door. Just kidding. I'm just kidding. All right. Thank you, Joanna, for always keeping us on track, even when I'm having an emotional breakdown here. So it is 3:19 p.m. It is August 28th, 2025. The Oregon Veterinary Medical Examining Board will now go into executive session pursuant ORS 192.6602 capital L, ORS 192.6602 little f, ORS 192.6602 little h, and 676.1751 concerning discipline, litigation, and exempt public records. Representatives of the news media and designated staff will be allowed to attend the executive session. All other members of the audience are asked to leave the room. Representatives of the news media are specifically directed not to report on any of the deliberations during the executive session, except to state the general subject of the session as previously announced. No decision will be made in executive session, and at the end of the executive session, we will return to open session and welcome the audience back into the room. Thank you. It is now 8:20 p.m. on August 28th, 2025. The board members and the staff will move into executive session for the Oregon Veterinary Medical Examining Board.
Okay, good stuff. We got through